All right. Welcome everybody, and again, we apologize for the technical difficulties. That's what happens when this is live. So thanks for TSD for getting us back on track here, and our mic's working because I know we got a lot to say. So we want to make sure that it captures everything. So welcome everybody to the 23rd of September 2025 regular session of the Monroe County Council. Present in the Nat U Hill room, we have Councilors Vital, Deckert, Henry, Iverson, and Hawk. And not present today in person and via Teams is Councilor Wiltz. So we will go ahead and get into it. And so all those that are able to stand, please stand for the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, all right. So next up is the adoption of the agenda. And does anybody wish to amend tonight's agenda? Yes, Councilor Iverson.
Madam President, I would like to amend the agenda by tabling items 7B and 9G to our next meeting, which is Tuesday, October the 14th.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to table those items to October 14th. Yeah, I think you can.
All right. I would also like to table item 11A, which is Resolution 2025-37, to the October 14th council meeting.
Second.
I would also like to amend items 11C, overtime resolution, and 11D, hiring freeze resolution, to the discussion items and possible approval to allow for further council input to these resolutions. And lastly, I would like to amend the agenda to add item 11F, a discussion to amend resolution 2025-27, establishing 2026 minimum cash balances, and move the 2026 budget reviews to item 11G. That's it.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. Yes, Councilor Hawk.
Okay, the resolutions, did you table that to allow for what was your motion?
May. The first motion dealing with the resolution was to table item 11A
Okay,
to the October 14th council meeting.
okay,
And I wanted to amend items 11C and 11D to allow not only for discussion, but also possible approval.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so we got a motion and a second, and so is everybody clear on those motions? Okay, and no further discussion? Looking to my right, does anybody else have any questions over here?
Point
Yes.
of information. So on item 9A through D, is there an opportunity to combine for simultaneous on here rather than for separate items?
Yes, within the motion that I have provided in the script, I have combined A and B into one motion and C and D into one motion.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Okay,
Madam President, I have
Yes.
another motion up. So we have under consent agenda item B, the request for approval of creation of new account lines, simultaneously approve category transfer in the health fund. Councilor Iverson, you didn't table that one, is that correct?
I did.
Oh, that is the tabled one? Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you for the clarification.
okay,
Yeah, that's, all right, thank you.
okay. So to run it back, just to make sure that we all know, items 7B and 9G is tabled to 1014. Resolution 11A is tabled to October 14th. The resolutions regarding overtime and a hiring freeze is a discussion and possible approval for tonight. And we also are amending the agenda to add item 11F for discussion to amend the resolution that establishes the minimum cash balances. So, once again, I want to make sure everybody is heard here. Is everybody clear on the motions? And is there any further discussion related to amending tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of approving tonight's agenda as amended signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Thank you all for that. So next up is item number 4, which is public comment. And so this is the opportunity for those that are here present in the Nat U Hill room to speak on items that are not on tonight's agenda. If you are here in the Nat U Hill room, you can make your public comment by coming forward to the lectern here in the Nat U Hill room, and you will have up to 3 minutes. And those that are present via Teams also can make public comment, but you can also raise your hand via Teams, and you too will have up to 3 minutes. So I'm gonna look here to the Nat U Hill room to see if there's anybody that would like to make public comment. Again, on items not on the agenda, please come forward to the lectern. And then I'm gonna look via Teams to see if we have some hands raised, to see if anybody would like to make public comment via Teams. Right. And seeing none, seems like we are all ready to go here. So we will move forward with making or closing out public comment and move forward to department updates. So next up for department updates, if there are any departments that are via Teams or present here in the Nat U Hill room, you have up to 10 minutes to talk about items that are not on tonight's agenda. And again, you can raise your hand via Teams or you can come here to the lectern here in the Nat U Hill room. Right. And seeing none on that. Next up is item number 6, which is the update and discussion regarding the American Rescue Plan Act, also known as ARPA projects. So at this time, I would like to invite, I see one commissioner here present. So you all can come on up here and you can have a seat here at the table, and we will open up the conversation on our ARPA projects and discussions of those items and next steps.
Maybe you want me to start?
You can go ahead. Welcome.
Yeah, and I think I may be the reason we're having this meeting. I've been working with our health department, and the auditor's office has been working with the health department on the septic agreements and septic contracts. Right now, we have roughly $600,000 out in approved contracts to replace septic systems. Excuse me. And I think we're going to struggle to get enough contracts done that we are going to have the ability to say for certain that we're going to be able to spend all the money by the end of next year. A lot of that has to do with the really wet year we had this year, because you can only put septic systems in when it's dry. Right now, I think we're starting. I saw quotes come in today for a new agreement, which so I think there's still time left this year. But I think when we were discussing it, we also want to be sensitive to the fact that we do have a hard deadline for these funds to be used. And so our internal discussion had us going to the council, going to the commissioners and expressing, hey, can we have till maybe December 1 or Thanksgiving, somewhere around there, kind of as a hard cutoff to get these contracts in place. And then after we have that, then we would have a number that's uncontracted that we would know what that overage is. And then those contracts would primarily be for placements next summer, right? So we want to be sensitive to, we think the septic is a big need. clearly we've done a lot of septic programs, but we also want to be sensitive that we want to make sure that we spend every dollar that we get from the federal government for the ARPA programs. And so I think our plan was talk to the council, talk to the commissioners, see if we could get see if you guys are comfortable with us having that kind of December 1 hard deadline and getting those contracts in. And then that way in December, you would know exactly what we wouldn't have obligated under contract for that ARPA program. And then we could have a discussion of what that overage is and then what you guys wish to do with the whatever amount it is. Is that?
So we don't know the number yet. We will know the number. Once we know the number, we will also know whether it's in restricted or unrestricted, and we'll come up with an options list and we'll talk through it with y'all. And there's really nothing to decide today. This is really just a discussion item so that you're aware of what's happening, and we're keeping track of the calendar and the budgets, both.
Okay, and I know before I open it up to council, I wanted to look to see if the auditor had anything to add to that discussion there.
Good evening, Council. We just want to remind the public and everyone that these dollars have to be expended by December of 2026. So if we do make any adjustments to a contract, we would need to keep that in mind. We did recommend that we have a backup plan if any contracts were to come in short of what is currently obligated.
Thank you. I'm curious to hear what council members have to think about the deadlines, because I guess personally, I was thinking we would know a little bit more this evening, because I think while we all have budget brain right now, it's definitely something to think about in terms of some of the conversations that we've had where we have potentially listed out things where we could possibly use the ARPA funding and remove it from budget and possibly put it into ARPA projects. So I was hoping, because in fact, and correct me if I'm wrong, y'all, we heard during the convention centers or that budget, something about a broken elevator, and I had wrote down in my notes here something related to possibly using ARPA to have funding for that. So, yeah, I mean, I was hoping that we would have more information tonight. So I'll look over here to my right and see if y'all have any questions or comments. So it looks like everybody has a line here. So usually when everybody raises their hand, I'll just go down the sultry line here. So I'll start off with Councilor Iverson.
Thank you, Madam President. Thanks for being here yet another night. You know, we certainly got the message that weather is playing a huge role here in these septic systems. So thanks for keeping us in the loop, and hopefully we can get more of those out there. I certainly have had septic systems in the past, and they're pretty nasty to deal with when they're old, and so I'm certainly appreciative of your work, or our work on this. I guess septic is just one of 14 lines where there's unexpended dollars, and I certainly am septic is the one where the unexpended is the highest percentage. So do we know in the $5.8 million of unexpended dollars, do we have other account lines that we need to be highlighting for concern that they may not be expended by December 31st, 2026?
I know that for me, what I know for sure is that the septic is the one where we're most likely going to not expend. I think for these other projects, we have contracts in place. Like I think commissioners just heard the last convention center related ARPA contract like 2 weeks ago or 10 days ago. So, I mean, this is the bills are not in yet because the contract was just approved. So I think this is something we will obviously be looking at, but I just think right now it's actually premature to say, oh, look, there's money left over, because I don't think that there is necessarily. And I know the numbers look big, but I don't think that reflects the reality. In some cases, we just haven't gotten billed yet, and we know the project's out there or the contract's approved, so.
Sure. Can I hear from the auditor's office? I think you had something to say on this.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I can share my screen so the public can see what we're seeing.
Please.
Okay, so you should be able to see the projects in green that have.
So Mr. Kreider just pointed out to me, for example, under the convention center, since that was raised, that it shows here $101,864.56 unexpended, but by his calculations, based on projects that have been contracted or need to be completed, we're going to be down to about $10,000. So I do think there's going to be little bits of money left in some of these funds. And, you know, we will be talking through what can be done with that. But I think, again, I think I know you're in the middle of budget crisis mode, but I don't think that today is going to be the day where we could say, oh, money's done, it's over with, whatever's left over goes to something else. I just think that there are things outstanding.
Sure.
So.
Did you have more to say from the auditor's office, or you just wanted to show what I was reading?
So in front of you, you can see the green cells that have unexpended balances. We have not received any indicators that any other projects will come in under budget, but it's always good to have a backup plan, especially because it does take time to get these two groups together and make those decisions. We would hate to end in a way that we don't have a clear path as to what both bodies would like if we do come into a scenario where additional funds are unutilized. And as we've discussed before, we do have distinctions between how some of this money can be spent. So you'll notice that some of the cells are colored in orange and some of them are in yellow. We have limitations to our unrestricted expenditures. So as of right now, those yellow cells are all of our lost revenue dollars, which are unrestricted. That limit that we can spend is $10 million. As of right now, we have $152,243.76 of this money that could be obligated. I'm so sorry. It's obligated, but if we wanted to move any of these around, we couldn't exceed the $10 million.
Okay, and then, Madam President, can I just say one last thing? I am in favor of a backup plan, and Commissioner Thomas, I think one of the things that could be in that backup plan is what you just mentioned, where some of these funds are going to have a little bit of money in them, and what do we do with that little bit of money?
And restricted versus non-restricted is going to give us a really powerful indicator about what we can actually spend that money on. We may be very limited in what we can do with some of it, so we need to be careful about that.
I agree. Okay.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Commissioner Thomas, as well. And I think Peter really answered quite a few of my questions in terms of residuals and what is able to be. I want to caution by saying reprogrammed, but we are talking about whatever the residuals are here. And yeah, and there were two that jumped off the page of me here. Regarding, I know we're working hard on the Karst Field project, but I'm also looking at the general obligation bond asking for almost $905,000 for the nature preserve and the proposed GO bond we're going to talk about later this evening. So it's something like that, right? Where if we have unexpended here. It looks like we have some, some ideas here. It sounds like there's another set of numbers that aren't before us. Maybe we can talk about the park one first for a minute. Just that might be helpful. Because that's a 2 million and change. Yeah, where's the status on that one? Yeah, hi. We swapped in. All right. Can you reference it on the screen? Yeah, and on the screen for folks, it is line item. Thank you, 37, Carsfields. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want me to talk to you about the unexpended?
Yeah, what's unexpended? Because that's a huge item here right now, yeah.
It will all be probably gone in 90 days.
Okay, that's easy. So, okay,
And we actually need more money if possible, because I think you all remember the airport's farm field that has an ARPA caused us to have a $114,000 drainage issue for this project. So we would take anything additional to make up that $114,000.
I mean, there is in line 38, 1.6, almost 1.6 million in airport stormwater and drainage. Again, I guess to Commissioner Thomas's point, there's another set of numbers here we haven't scraped yet. So this is kind of I think the stuff that we're looking for. The only other one thank you for that, by the way. Yeah, thank you for that. The only other one I guess I have a question about, and I know Councilor Wiltz, if she were here, she's asked about this before. On line 33, the jail transition contract, we were starting to see continued travel on that line item, even though it seems like a lot of the planning with DLZ is kind of done, but there seems to be receipts still for travel being filed on that contract. Does anyone have any? Commissioner Thomas, no idea on it. Okay. Okay, that's fair. Just wanted to highlight. Thanks, Madam President.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Councilor Hogg.
Yes, I'm seeing 233,000 approximately for that's still left to be expended for jail locks. So I think we should check to see if they need. That's one of the things we discussed not long ago was like, if you have a problem, let's get that taken care of. Can't wait for 5 years for a new jail. So I see the auditor's staff has something.
I did have communication with the financial manager in that department, and it does sound like they are on track to spend those dollars.
Those dollars are not available then. And I also see under line 6, COVID vaccine, that it looks as if that has all been expended out. Is that correct?
Yeah, the only ones that are active are the green.
Right. I just want to call our attention to that since there's been a lot of discussion.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yes, Councilor Decker.
Thank you very much. My question is, so lost revenue or restricted line we can add to or we can juggle around. Help me out with that, auditor. I want to make sure I got it right.
I apologize for that jumbled explanation.
No, it's me, not you.
So we cannot increase our obligations for the lost revenue category beyond 10 million. Right now, we are short of that 10 million by roughly 152,000.
Well, the reason I ask is when I look at the list of projects that we did, and this has been a long process, that as I look at the list, it brings back a lot of memories from some difficult times and other difficult times and a whole story there. But one thing that we have talked about here is the potential to up dollars that we would use for our not-for-profit community through Sophia Travis dollars. We looked at an option to raise that considerably because we expect demand is high and other things like that. I see lines here where we responded to Hoosier Hill Food Bank and Pantry 279 that serve the greater portion of this community with a lot of food. And so my thought is if we start getting into, and I'm not ready to offer anything yet, but if we start getting into the how do you make this work, those entities could probably take you tonight and buy food. And if those lines, it looks like Hoosier Hills did match when I was kind of glancing. I'm not sure about Pantry 279, but if that starts matching, you could juggle that around there. And if we are in a need to do more for our local not-for-profit community, that could be a quick way to do that. And that Hoosier Hills line was 37487. Community kitchen, we actually got the express kitchen, so that's should be a done deal. But for buying food, if I'm reading this right, we could buy food, and if we need food we have.
And maybe I'll respond a little bit to that. I think one of the things we would work with our vendor, Baker Tilly, who has been helping us make sure we stay within our rules and guidelines, we would ask them that question. My understanding is that the projects have to be opened, or the money would have still had to been obligated by the end of 2024. So if we have these open projects, as long as we don't materially change them, I think we could add a little bit to them. But again, that's why we have Baker Tilly. So with that question, we would run it by Baker Tilly to see if that is an acceptable route. So I don't want to. It's not quite the hey, look at anything on this list, and we could certainly fund that. But we can ask those questions and get those answers.
You have to be nimble. All that'll have to be figured out pretty quickly.
Okay. Did anybody else have any? I guess the one question that I have is, since the last claim date that I see for rural transit, since that's definitely something that we have to think about on the horizon, was what looks like March of this year. If there is, so by the logic that we're saying right now, because, let me see, sorry, is that considered closed?
So there were actually 2 awards to rural transit. The first one has been closed. The second one has not been closed. And I believe that is line 44 towards the bottom.
Okay.
The item that's closed is the buses. We actually purchased buses. That's done.
Gotcha.
The item that's open is this year's service to the quote-unquote urbanized area.
Okay. And that's the one that we've kind of had open communication with our good friends down the street in Ellisville. Okay. So, I mean, I would think that if there is funding, if we're, trying to come up with a contingency plan for, extra dollars, I would love to see how we could use some of those extra dollars for this particular project as well, if possible. While I'm sure it might not be enough, and we still will have to have conversations, every little dollar helps. So that's definitely something that I would think of in the back burner too, while hopefully continuing to have conversations with the town of Ellisville too. All right. Yes, Councilor Iverson.
I wanted to take this in a different direction. Could you scroll up to line 20? Today, Commissioner Thomas and 3 of us from the County Council were able to see these dollars in work. This is $500,000, and Commissioner Thomas was able to break ground on Beacon Inc.'s new center, and that money was used to help do that. So I think if we're going to look forward to a plan on how to use these funds, I would also like to think about ways to celebrate some of the things that happened in this community that would not have happened had it not been for these dollars. This new center is cool. It's going to do a lot of really good work for a lot of people.
Agreed. All right. Look, yes, Councilor Hawk.
I just need a little clarification. Is it only the ones that are in green that has an opportunity to move some dollars around into those? Do I understand that correctly? It's only these that have an opportunity to be able to use the money for something else because they're still open?
Based on our conversations with Baker Tilly, that is accurate. The federal government does not like us moving these obligations around, and it raises far less red flags to move the obligations within open projects. And just keep in mind, we can't substantially change the scope of the projects.
Okay. Does anybody, last call for any other questions? Looking around? Okay. And since this was a discussion, there is no motion or anything that needs to be made. So now, of course, we just wait for you all to come back in December, and which isn't that far around the corner, oddly enough. So we will look forward to having that conversation again. So thank y'all very much. All right, have a good night. All right, next up is number 7, which is our consent agenda items.
Council, I move to approve the following consent agenda item for September 23rd. A, the prosecutor's request in Fund 1000-0009, General Fund Prosecutor, for a category transfer in the amount of $15,000 from the personnel category to the services category. And B,
Nope.
which we tabled.
Okay.
Just A.
Okay.
Second. Just A.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Are there any further discussion from council related to the consent agenda items? All right, seeing none. All those in favor of approving our consent agenda items tonight signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Next up, we are at item number A for ongoing business, or 8A. Yeah.
Council, as a reminder, this is the second reading of this request due to the lack of a unanimous vote at the August 12th, 2025 meeting. I move to approve the Health Department's request to amend the 2025 salary ordinance in Fund 1161-0000 Local Public Health Services to remove the positions outlined on the agenda.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second, and I don't see anybody from the health department that is here to discuss this. So I'll look to the liaisons to see if they feel comfortable. Yeah.
So, Council, this is essentially a housekeeping item. As you'll recall, we moved positions from Health First Indiana to the Health Fund and in the 2025 budget. And we needed to make this change because we moved those positions. This is completely separate from the 2026 budget, where we've already made the decision to move them back. This is only for the 2025 budget.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Hawk.
Yeah. That, and I don't think that they all landed in the 1159. Some did, some did not, if I recall right. But it would make sense to me to leave these open and to finish out the year in the 1161, thereby saving the money in the now the 1059. What was the number? So that they would have additional cash in that, because that's where we are trying to save the money to make sure that we've got enough, because that's in that frozen levy portion. So it makes sense to just finish out the year, since we've already moved them over there for next year, to just go ahead and finish out the year. It would save quite a bit of money to land there in the 1059.
Okay, so if I understand what you're saying, Councilor Hawk, is finish out the year in 2025 where they are, since we've already made the changes for 2026. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying they should be moved back over. In other words, right now, we've got some vacant spots because we moved them over into the property tax fund, because we moved them over from the 1161 over to there. So now these positions are sitting vacant and in the 1161 budget and just growing the 1161 balance. And it seems to me you've moved the employees back over there and finish out the year in the 1161 and let the property tax balance grow, which would help the frozen levy portion. And it's not going to hurt them at all. You're just moving around. And I don't think that they all moved to the 1059. I think only maybe two or
Kim's got her hand up.
Yes.
I just want to remind council, the appropriations for this has already been deappropriated, and appropriations have already been appropriated in 1159. So if you choose to have these remain so that she can use them, she'll have to come back and appropriate. But these were the last positions to be moved with regards to those core services that were being questioned. There are, I believe, 3 positions that are still in 1161, but I'm looking that up right now.
Okay. Yeah, and while you're looking that up, I'll go to Councilor Henry.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. There's even further complication here because as of July 1, HFI was no longer, or the public health coordinator and public health preparedness director were no longer able to be funded in HFI. If you recall, it was tobacco cessation and the public health preparedness programs that would have been discontinued had we not moved it into county dollars, right? So there's a distinction here about at least 2 of these, and without the health office here, I don't know if 10113 is one of those as well, but I definitely know, just being me, that the public health coordinator and the preparedness ones were part of that we, after July 1st, were ineligible to be funded by HFI. That's why we moved them. Yeah, and so we brought them into county dollars for the purpose of, preparing the county for, pandemic and other disasters, right? So the other piece of this that has my attention tonight in context of the budget is that we are buying time with the auditor's office, county legal, and the health department to figure out how we're going to manage to take care of people in our community who may not be able to provide proof of citizenship, that may have tuberculosis or other things our county health department needs to treat. As of right now, with how we moved things, those services continue, but the clock is ticking for January of 25 when we did the movement in the budget, right, as proposed. So I guess that's also on my mind too, that moving these positions assures we're providing those services universally in the county. And then there are some items that we can't really move anywhere because the consequence would be basically terminating those account lines and persons in them. There's nowhere to fund them right now to move them back to HFI. But those are some thoughts I have on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
game of musical chairs in this department.
And Michelle, I'm gonna look to you to see if you got that information. Okay.
4 positions that are still in 1161. Everything else has been moved appropriation-wise as well to 1159. This just cleans up the salary ordinance to match what you've done with regards to appropriations.
Got it.
So
Okay.
whatever you decide.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna look over here to my left to see if anybody has any questions on this. No? Okay. I'm gonna look to my right and see if you all wanna pick up your mic and speak into the mic regarding to.
Sorry, Madam President,
Yes.
I was contemplating a motion, but
Sure.
I'm not saying a motion right now. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, seeing no further discussion on this item, if there are any public commenters that would like to take public comment on this item, you can come forward to the lectern here in the Nat U Hill room, or you can raise your hand via Teams. And seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Fidel?
Yes.
Counselor Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
No.
Counselor Crossley? Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Vote passes 5-1.
Okay, thank you very much on that item. Next up, we are going to go to new business, which we'll start off with the sheriff's office, item number 9.
Council, I will be combining items A and B into one motion. I move to approve the sheriff's request in Fund 8103-0000 Operation Pullover for an additional appropriation of $14,908.79 in the personnel category and to simultaneously in Fund 1000-0005 County General Sheriff deappropriate $14,908.79 in the personnel category.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. We have
Wait, did I hear 14 million?
I'm sorry, excuse me. Let me change.
14,000. Yes.
I'm glad the gallery thinks that's funny. All right, $14,908.79.
Okay, now we balance.
Okay. And we're still good and seen. All right. And now we have Ms. Jamie Yonke here. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. So this is just housekeeping. It's just the first and the second quarter of the CHIRP grant, just moving the funds back where they need to be.
All right, doing a little housekeeping here. Seems to be the theme right now. All right, and so if anybody over here to my left have any questions? Seeing none. Anybody over here to my right have any questions? Go once. All right, seeing none, if there are public comment on this particular item, you can come forward to the lectern here in the Nat Yeho room, or you can raise your hand via Teams. And seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Henry,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Fido.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right, next up is item C.
Council, I will be combining items C and D into one motion. I move to approve the sheriff's request in Fund 8143-0000 JAG Sheriff to create account line 21124 Safety, Supplies/Equipment and appropriate $3,804 in the supplies category and to simultaneously in Fund 1000-0005 County General Sheriff deappropriate $3,804 in the supplies category.
Second.
All right, and what would you like to add to this?
I think it's just housekeeping, just to keep the grant funds where they need to be.
Okay. All right, looking to my right here to see if you have any questions. Council have any questions on this item? Nope. And looking to my left, yes, Councilor Decker.
I just want to quickly say I appreciate the efficiency of these motions. I think this is awesome. Thank you.
Efficiency at its best. All right. Seeing no other further question or discussion from council, we'll move to public comment. If you have public comment, you can raise your hand via Teams, or you could come forward to the lectern here in the Nat Yeho room. And seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Fido,
Yes.
Counselor Henry.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night. All right, next up is item E from the Youth Services Bureau.
Council, I move to approve the Youth Service Bureau's request in Fund 4111-0000 Donation BTCC for an additional appropriation of $1,850 in the services category.
Second.
All right, we got a motion in a second. It looks like we have Ms. Vanessa Schmidt that is via Teams. And you can go ahead and present. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. So yeah, just a little bit of housekeeping for us as well. I am just requesting the approval of an additional appropriation. Both are donations. One is a $500 sponsorship from the City of Bloomington that will again support our 10th annual Monroe County Youth Summit. And then we have another, this is actually not a donation, but this is from trainings that our Bloomington, the Building Thriving and Compassionate Community BTCC subcommittee has provided, and that's in the amount of $1,350.
Okay, thank you. And glad to hear about those donations for the Youth Summit. Excited to hear about that. All right. Looking to my right over here and seeing if anybody has any questions. Yes, Councilor Henry.
Thank you. No, just a comment related to just the great receipts that we have here, it's refreshing to still see words like equity and inclusion on government documents. And so I'm a fan of the BTCC program and what they've done in the community. I'm just glad to see that is, in fact, as they say, thriving in its title. So that was nice to see.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like to see it too. All right. Anybody else have any questions on the side related to this item or comments? Seeing none, looking to my left. All right, seeing none. All right, so we'll move to public comment. If you have public comment on this item, you can come forward to the lectern here in the Night U Hill room, or you can raise your hand via Teams. And seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Fidel?
Yes.
Counselor beg pardon, Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk? Beg pardon?
It didn't get picked
No,
up.
I was saying yes.
Oh, thank you. Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right, thank you for that. Next up, we're still sticking with Youth Services Bureau for item F.
Council, I move to approve the Youth Service Bureau's request in Fund 8120-9626, Runaway Homeless Youth Grant, for the creation of new account lines outlined on the agenda and to simultaneously approve additional appropriations of $159,748 in the personnel category, $6,750 in the supplies category, and $15,594 in the services category, for a total appropriation of $182,092.
Second.
All right, and what would you like to add to this item?
Thank you, Council. Again, this is our Runaway and Homeless Youth Grant. It is a 3-year grant that we are awarded, but we apply for a continuation every year. And so this is our second year of the fiscal funding in that 3-year grant period. And we're just requesting appropriation of that $182,092.
Well, congratulations on obtaining that grant.
Thank you.
Yes, you're very welcome. I will look to my right because I already saw a hand, Counselor Hawk.
Yes, as many times as I've been speaking with you lately, I don't know why I didn't ask you this question.
Sure.
But what I see, they have some salaries in here. And since this is covered with a grant, do those salaries stay as the grant, as it's entered here? Whether or not there's a raise? The other thing I wanted to check on, and I see that you have covered the self-insurance out of this grant. That is really a very good thing, because when we accept a grant and it actually ends up costing a lot of money out of that insurance fund, it's good for the grant to be written such that it can include that self-insurance in the grant. So.
Yes, so when we apply initially at the 3-year mark, we don't always know what those COLA raises are going to look like. Sorry, I feel like there's a lot of feedback. Sorry. I don't always know what those COLA raises are going to look like. And so we make adjustments each year through our continuation apps. So if there is a COLA increase that we weren't anticipating, then we will make adjustments in our supplies category, outreach category to make up for that amount.
Thank you.
All right, and I'm gonna look to my left here to see if anybody else has any questions. All right, last call over here. All right, seeing none, if there is any public comment on this item, you can come forward to the lectern here in the Night U Hill room, or you can raise your hand via Teams. And seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Fidel?
Yes.
Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, next up, since we, as a reminder, we tabled item G, we are moving to item H, which is the Board of Commissioners for the 2025 General Obligation Bond.
Well, get ready, this is a long one. Council, I move to open for discussion and establish this as the first reading of Ordinance 2025-30, An ordinance authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds and ordinance 2025-31, an appropriation ordinance for the general obligation bond of $6.1 million for projects which include but are not limited to 1. Design plans for improvements at the Monroe County Airport. 2. Remodeling of the Showers Building, primarily for renovations for voter and election services. 3. Vehicles. 4. Improvements at the Youth Services Bureau, Monroe County Nature Preserve, courthouse grounds, emergency management building. Number 5, body cameras. Number 6, non-lethal force equipment for the Sheriff's Department. Number 7, airport furniture, tools, and equipment. Item number 8, which is the last one, emergency management sirens and equipment and all related improvements and the incidental expenses in connection with these projects.
All right, we got a motion and a second, and back again is Mr. Jeff Cockrell, Ms. Angie Purdy, and Commissioner Julie Thomas. Welcome.
And I think I'll start off because this document I've prepared and I've reviewed and brought a document similar to this every year for the last 15 years. And this is probably the first time it's had really a substantial difference to what we had done in the previous year. And there really are two differences in this ordinance, and they both are kind of a result of Senate Bill 1. The first is our typical term has historically been a one-year bond, and with the recent legislation, there is a cooling off period where in order to be able to issue this bond, we have to make this bond longer than 5 years. So I believe what you have in front of you is a 6-year bond. And that's one of the major differences. The other is the amount on it is $6 million. Typically, we do $3.1 million, $3 million for the project cost, and then $100,000. And that was done solely so you guys would have the discretion whether you wanted to stick with the kind of standard amount, the old amount of 3.1, or whether you wanted to expand it to $6 million due to what you see as fiscal needs for the county. And so those are kind of the two major changes from what this group has looked at in the past. So if you have any questions about those changes, I'm more than happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to the people who actually know the projects and they can explain to you what they wish to do.
I already saw a hand. Councilor Hawk.
Yes. Since there's a 1-year cooling off time, if we don't use six-year plan, but we could use our regular plan if at the beginning of next year and not do one this year. Could we not? I think that's something we talked with.
I think what the code says is that in basically the final year you pay it off, which we would have paid off last year's bond this year, then you have a 1-year cooling off after that payment occurs.
Okay.
So I think we would have to wait till 2027 to issue the bond.
Thank you. That made it more clear to me.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Henry.
Thank you, and thank you, Jeff, and everyone for putting this together. I do have a few questions. So it's page 71 in the packet, but it's the Exhibit A-1, which is description of projects and the actual language of the bond itself, not the spreadsheet. And that's, I think, what Councilor Iverson basically read in this evening as well in terms of the types of projects. There's a line in here that says projects include but are not limited to. Is that a standard phrase that you've used in the previous 15 years of bonds?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's what gives us the wiggle room for potentially re-obligating a project one way or another, is that right?
And I think at the end, as well as all related improvements and incidental expenses in connection with these projects is also another area where you get a little bit of wiggle room.
Okay, so I guess that my question's then about, there's an additional sheet that was provided to council about some of the other projects that are listed here. For example, TSD, $500,000 for laptops, stormwater, 450,000 for street sweeper. These were items that, of course, we removed from the 26 budget that are now in the bond. And I'll only speak for myself here and not other council members. I think my intention was that we actually go back to the 11 years of previous bonds, the 5.9 million that is already sitting there, and look to those line items to include but are not limited to repurposing those to find some resources. What this seems to have done is to take the items we've removed from the budget and added it onto the large bond, but disabuse me of my thought process here. I want to make sure I understand what we're adding on here. Yeah.
I guess some are from the budget. That would be the stormwater, $450,000. That is also the $102,000 for airport for furniture, tools and equipment and things of that nature. The YSB is from the budget at $55,000. And those were the only things that we actually took from the proposed 2026 budget and put into this proposed 2025 grant. The TSD sheriff, those are body cameras and tasers. That's actually a 5-year program at $440,000 a year. And the laptops are for the squad vehicles, and that's at $500,000.
I see that. I guess I'll just restate my the way I put it, and again, I'll leave it to other counselors to maybe explain what they thought we were doing when we were cutting items out of the budget in terms of seeking previous bonds and use that we have that has been languishing, frankly. And I know that you've said it's accounted for, there are projects that are in mind, but we don't have the granularity beyond that initial sheet. And so I guess when I had proposed this, my goal was to use what we had and not add on to the pile. I see you are, gesticulating maybe a disagreement with that idea, but I mean, that's what I'm after here. The second thing I guess I would ask is in the laundry list of projects, do you have a final number on the cost of the mold in the Justice Building for the work that was done?
I don't have that off the top of my head. I think the most recent, I don't know, do you guys remember, did you see it come in? It's like 24,000 comes off to the top of my head, so, but I'm not sure where that's coming from.
Okay, and how was that paid for?
Out of special projects. We paid for it out of special projects in Cumulative Capital Development Fund.
Is there a reason why Justice Building isn't listed as a possibility for projects in this particular bond over 5 years?
There wasn't. What we did is we put together all of the projects that had been presented to us and things that we knew that needed to be done. I did recognize that the Justice Building is not on here, and it generally is a huge cost to Monroe County government. The mold remediation has been remediated, and we have, it'll be coming to the commissioners in a week, I think it is, a proposed long-term plan to how to address the issues within that particular building. Going back to the issue about the prior bonds, those, I don't know how else to say it, those projects are already in play. And if there was some money left in a bond from prior years that was for vehicles, we've already pooled that and are using that for the vehicles now. Like I was here at your last meeting, I believe, requesting additional funds for sheriff vehicles out of cumulative capital. I was able to reduce that request because of unused prior lines that were specific for sheriff vehicles that we were able to take and just go ahead and apply that to the cost of vehicles coming out at this time. So we don't have money in old bonds that can be used for any of these particular new projects. Whenever we have a capital project come up and we don't have the funding, we go to the bonds first to make sure if there's been a project that has been expended and there's some money left that if we can use it. But the money goes to the projects in that bond first. So like when Parks has a project, if there's money, if they need more money for their project, we will transfer from another line.
Yeah, no, I understand the interpretation. I'm reading it differently because it's not that granular in the exhibit. And it seems that when we have found resource, and that's a word we've used in this room, it strikes me as interesting because there would be more detail or granularity in that project. It shouldn't be found, I guess is my point. And I'm going to keep coming back to this because there seems to be some, maybe, it's hard to talk in this room sometimes. There may be some talking past each other about what that money really is and how it gets obligated and deobligated as projects devolve or evolve over time. That's all I have on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Iverson.
I have, I'm sorry, did you use?
I was just wondering if I could respond briefly. I know that Ms. Purdy has provided a regularly updated spreadsheet to council, which lists out the quote-unquote leftover money. And it's not, I don't want the public to think we're sitting on millions of dollars in this big slush fund that we're going to spend on gold taps or something. It's a regular effort, and I mean regular effort, that is put into a project need comes up. That's the first place she looks, is previous bonds, special projects, our current budget, what can we do? Then if it's something that really has to happen, we go GO bond. And the whole reason GO bonds are so important to this county is because years ago, back when I was on council, even before I was on council, the decision was made, and obviously forced to be made on the council, the fact that cable franchise fees were going down and we no longer have money for technical services, so therefore we're going to use cumulative capital development fund. So that decision was made years ago. Now, cable franchise fee would never have supported this, our technical services department. It certainly couldn't pay for the vastly increased budget that we need every year for software. And so what should be the capital fund is pretty minimal for the commissioners to utilize for projects that have to get done. And we're very careful, we're very specific. The list that looks very general to you for GO bonds, it always bothered me too, always, when I first started this job. But it is general for a reason, and it's always been that way. It's not something that we invented. But at the same time, if changes are made here, the commissioners will go back and amend our resolution to match what you all want in there, okay?
And I would just point out that the exhibit that we're talking about does not have laptops in it or computer equipment, and a couple in
Yeah, we're gonna have to go back anyway.
the street sweeper. So if those were things we wanted to fund with this bond, I know that there is some wiggle room, but it is wiggle room. It's not a hole. That I would ask that we would amend that description of projects to include those things, and then we would go back to the commissioners and amend this project description of projects to include those things so that it's there. I mean, part of what this description of projects to me is telling the public, here is what our intent to use the money for, and what we're taxing for. So we want it to be as complete and accurate as possible.
I'm going to acknowledge that I see Councilor Hawk's hand, but I know Councilor Iverson had his hand up first before Commissioner Thomas made a comment. So I'm going to go to Councilor Iverson, and then I'll come back to you, Councilor Hawk.
I've got 3 questions on 3 separate lines, so I'm taking this in a new direction. Could we look at line number 12? On the sheet that I have in front of me, there's an acronym, and I don't know what that acronym is.
Historic Courthouse.
Awesome. HCH, Historic Courthouse, great. Second question is the airport projects. Are any of these FAA, I mean, I know that we are waiting on some FAA dollars to come in. Do we know? I don't know if Carlos is online, but I know that we needed to put in some funds, but I thought that there was,
Please, yeah.
Earlier this year, we brought a resolution actually to the county council that we're going to expend money for it. And I know this, the 184-439 Line 5 Tower Project.
I remember that too,
design. So we went ahead and did that, and there was a resolution that said, hey, if we get a general obligation bond, we'll reimburse the airport whatever funding source they use to pay for that. And that was to get a leg up, because I believe this is like the final year for a certain grant that pays for these kind of things. And I spoke with Carlos last week. We don't know if we've gotten it yet, but he's fairly optimistic that we're in good shape with that. So I know for a fact that one is tied directly to what I always consider pulling a highway and getting all the preliminary design work done before you apply for a grant, because it really increases your chances of getting that grant.
Yeah.
So I know that is what that for. I would assume that, probably the furniture, tools, and equipment are probably not part of a FAA grant, but the ARF equipment and ATCT equipment probably are or could be. And those are the kind of things we see more federal grants for than the other.
All right, and my third and final question is about the nature preserve. I am outright giddy about this. I am really excited, and I just want to be clear that we are talking about the Monroe County Nature Preserve here, right? This is so exciting. This is on the east side. I run past here all the time. And so I think the last time that Kelly was in front of us, we talked a lot about the invasives, and we were going to have to plant a whole bunch of trees to make sure that those invasives didn't. Is that what this money is for, or is this money for trails? I mean, I understand the dog park is different.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the other line.
She's gonna talk about that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I do not have a spreadsheet in front of me, so it's what I remember.
I'm sure it's
The
going to be
amount
sufficient.
that's, in
775.
the 775 includes a brand new entrance because we do not have one. It includes all of the dirt work, the stormwater, the planning and building requirements. Our park staff will be the general contractor, so we will not be hiring all of that work out. We'll have to have ADA parking for planning. We have ADA trail. We have trees, wildflowers, and yes, it includes some trees in there also. So it looks like a large number, but we can't open unless we do all the things that stormwater planning and building require of us. And it also includes the equipment for our park staff to do this. If we don't have the equipment, our park staff cannot build this. Does that answer?
It does. And can I ask a follow-up question?
Yes.
Because we had to change the term of this bond to 6 years, is that going to change the timelines for getting all these things set up at all?
No, our goal is if we can get our engineer on board, our park staff will start, if we have money, start constructing next year, which is 2026, and we can be open by 2027. That's a tight building, but our park staff is up for it only if they have the equipment. If they don't have the equipment, I always say our park superintendent with one shovel isn't going to do it. No.
And I just clarify that the 6 years is the repayment schedule. We would get the proceeds up front.
Another question?
No, I think I've talked enough.
I'll look to Councilor Hawk, and go ahead.
Okay, I have more than one thing to discuss. First of all, I just have to, I'm trying not to chuckle, but those of us who remember when someone, an employee, who decided that we did not need that sprinkler, it was a waste of water, and he tore our sprinklers out of the ground. You do not remember? And then to water all those plants, he was carrying buckets of water out there like it was going to save, and he tore them out of the ground. I think he was, well, I know who it was, but I guess I won't say who. It wasn't anybody sitting here right now.
There's something in the ground now.
Yeah,
we do have a system, but
currently,
but the system is so hinky that we get calls on a weekend because somebody's trying to walk down the sidewalk and the water's
Yeah,
just
that's
pouring
happened.
out of our sprinkler system. So we need to update it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm just saying, I remember he was so happy he had it. He even took his picture, he tore it up. So I hope if we do put it in there, we won't rip it out because we're trying to save water. And then a question about the courthouse steps. I'm thinking, what about that 147,000 approximately that we are asking for from the community foundation? So that's part of my question there, because we were going to talk about that tonight, and I guess we're going to talk about it next week. So it's for work for historic buildings, so that
There is a fund for historic building preservation. The steps are the limestone steps, and they're in disrepair. We want to make sure that we have obviously in mind that we do know that Canopy of Lights is every November, but we do know that the Sesqua Bicentennial is next July, and so we want to make sure that the steps are in decent shape by then. But do you want to talk about that funding?
Sure. So to complete the steps, it's going to be a little over $200,000. That's for basically we're going to make some nice new caps for the treads, and then follow it up with ADA compliant handrails. And then there's going to be approximately $50,000 to repair the sidewalks where they're cracked and busted in different locations, and $5,000 to replace the dove on the monument.
I'm not objecting to steps being repaired. I've fallen up those steps before around the courthouse. I just wanted to say there's an opportunity maybe to use that other 147 and not use all of that. Then I'm moving on to another question, having to do with the money for the nature preserve. My question is, that's not our only park, of course. What about that quarry park that we put so much money, got the quarry park? And that's, so, and we're covering some of that, or we've wondered, could we cover some of that with the food and beverage tax revenue? So I'm wondering if we could assist in any way. I'm just throwing out some ideas, some suggestions.
Are you looking at me?
And
the Quarry Park project is not a Parks Department project. So, and yes, it is going to utilize food and beverage dollars for development. We got stalled because we didn't know about the location of the new Justice Center, because that's on the south side of that new parkland. And now we know with our budget constraints that the roadway we thought was going to be there to feed people to that park will not be there. So we're going to have to reimagine all of that in terms of using Arlington. That is a food and beverage based project. And no money's been spent yet, but we are actively working in committee, and we have, once we have our first frost, I'm certainly not suggesting we speed the clock up in the world any more than we already have it, but once there's our first frost, we're going to go back out with an expert in limestone equipment, and we're going to take a look at what's there and continue in our committee meetings to move to the next step. So yes, it's a food and beverage, not a parks project.
Okay, my second, I'm trying to get through this quick second. The other thing I heard comments made about how the cum cap doesn't cover very much, there's very little left. And as a reminder, the commissioners used about $500,000, I believe that's the number, every year that's going out of there for the parking garage. And now, however many years ago that was, but we know that parking garages are supposed to have a lifetime expectancy of 30 years. So perhaps it's not going to be paid off until 30 years is up. That kind of thing goes on. But we need to remind ourselves that that's why they don't have much left in that cum cap to spend every year, because they opted to use it for a parking garage. So, I mean, that's some history I think we need to remember.
That's an interesting point. I appreciate that comment. I kind of, as we are on the cum cap, I kind of want to bring it back because as we're talking about this, it kind of, conversation from Councilor Henry kind of conjured up something else. So as we look at cum cap, and Ms. Purdy was talking about, we look at trying to transfer line items for certain things related to the Justice Center, and then anything from there, then we kind of look at cum cap to see how we can go from there. And then potentially, I guess last resort would be the bonds. My question is, because in listening to the conversations related to the Justice Center and listening to employees and whatnot talk about the building and some of the items that were discussed in terms of remediation, which was, why am I blanking? It was the HVAC system that was supposed to be brought up, and then the obvious problem was the water issue that was a thing. And obviously the water source, what was mentioned in that meeting was the water source was a thing that we needed to figure out where that was coming from to potentially remediate all of these issues. I guess my question is there any idea on the horizon to either use cum cap if there is something left in cum cap, or could we possibly look at working out the HVAC system where we can put that in the GO bond? Since those were conversations that were brought up during those meetings.
I'm not sure I'm going to answer your question, but I can talk about the condensation. Right now, that building is what they refer to as out of balance. And it means your supply air and your return air aren't even. And because that happens, it pulls more air from the outside of the building to try to even itself out. This summer, you're out of balance. You're pulling in air that's already 80% humidity, and you're unable to reduce that. Therefore, anything that's not insulated condensates and drips. And as far as funding, I can let somebody else talk about that.
Well, there is the sleeve system that was used, right? That's already been installed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I believe the controls have been, there was an issue with the controls with it.
Yeah, we just took last commissioners meeting some projects to improve the controls further. We've done a lot of insulating lately, so it's in progress.
Okay.
Out of CCD. So.
Okay. I guess maybe I didn't hear, maybe I'm not too savvy on that, is the conversation related to the HVAC system, because that was something that people were discussing in terms of, hey, can we have this looked at? And I walked away from that conversation at least thinking that that was something that was going to be looked at least that was mentioned. So are we saying that cum cap is going to cover that?
I'm not sure what the question, so I did hear people, so I believe the question is that that there is a perception that we were going to have the HVAC system tested.
Well, it wasn't so much that it was tested. I thought I remember, and I'm forgetting his name right now, but I swear I remember and listening to the conversation that people were saying that there was an HVAC problem and they wanted to look at the ducts and whatnot. And that was, at least to my understanding, now that was also at the time I just came back from surgery and I could have been delusional, but I don't think I am. But
Yeah, no,
I was thinking that we were going to have that be looked, or the HVAC system was something that was going to be looked at, since the people were complaining about the ducts and all of the items blowing through the air. I guess that's what I'm getting at.
Okay, and I think I think I think I'm on the same page. The issue was people are concerned about the ductwork. The issue, though, is we have the airspace tested, and if it tests within acceptable levels, and there's no guidance on mold, then we're at acceptable levels, right? So we're not going to keep diving down to find more problems if we don't have a problem. So if we're at an acceptable level, good. If we're at a, can't remember what it's called, slightly elevated maybe level, then we need to find the source of the problem, right? So then we need to look into, is there, and that's what they did. So vet goes in and they try to find where the problem is. They try to find where it's wet, things of that nature. Remediate that situation, resolve that situation. We got rid of the condensation. That solved that particular problem. And then plus they used the kill spray on the mold. So I do believe that there were some people who don't catch the fact that what we are looking at is the air that we breathe in the room, and it doesn't necessarily matter what's in that duct if what you're smelling, what you're breathing in here is of acceptable levels. Does that make sense?
It does. I guess I'm seeing it a little differently, and I don't want to continue to keep kind of going back and forth here, and I'm not, trying to be rude at all or anything, but I remember that it was almost a surprise to Sarah from Vet that we hadn't looked at the HVAC system, because there were literally comments that were made where people were saying that there is, they were surprised that Mr. Gardner, hadn't looked at that yet. And so I guess the reason why I keep coming back to this conversation is because if we use QMCAP for that and we are all done with that, then can we look at this with the GO bond? I guess that's my whole point of this.
I think part of this had to do with the question about the airspace above the tiles but outside the ductwork. And that came up as well. So I think that may be what you're remembering. And we also had a discussion. I know that there was an initial discussion, and I had to leave, but there was an initial discussion between David Gardner and Sarah Hamidovich at Vet about the systems that we already have in place from COVID using UV light, which actually helps reduce mold. And that those things were still there. And so they were having that discussion as well, and that was after the meeting was over. So I think I know what you're referring to, but here's the thing. So we're going to have a long-term plan that's going to require some investment for all of our buildings for testing on a regular basis and remediation as needed. We don't have that proposal yet, but Sarah Hamidovich is working on it, and that is something that we would pay for out of CUBE, probably.
Or out of professional services. So it just depends. But going back to the HVAC, I can't speak to that. I'm looking at Richard because I don't know that there's a problem other than the fact that it's out of balance.
Right. That's it. That's the problem. I think what I'm hearing is there concern that there's mold in the HVAC system, or are we talking about the how the HVAC system functions.
No, I know there is not that. And I have a little bit of background with property management and knowing the idea of when there is mold in the system and you haven't looked at the ducts, and you can clean and you can spray and you can fumigate all you want, but if you don't take care of, the HVAC system where all of that stuff is continuously to blow around and it's in there, you can clean it all you want. But if you don't look at that particular system there, it's going to keep blowing around and around. And that was the conversation that I recall hearing, where there were literal audible gasps where it was like, oh my God, I can't believe that we never thought of something like this before. So I guess, this is just a discussion of conversation of what we can use for GeoBonds and whatnot. And I know this is coming back up here in October, but I guess I just wanted, since we were on that mention and since we're talking about funding and all those different things, that's kind of what I was talking about, if that makes sense.
All right, so why is there no money in this GEO bond to invest in the Justice Building HVAC system?
Cleaning out the ducts? Is that the issue? Cleaning the ducts?
Well, I guess the truth of the matter is the only thing I'm worried about right now is since we keep talking about CUMCAP and versus GeoBond and whatnot, is that something that we can take care of with CUMCAP, or if we don't have it from professional services or other different line items, is that something that we can put in the GeoBond is what I'm asking.
So the short answer is yes.
Okay.
The long answer is, why would we invest funds to clean out the ductwork if the air that you're breathing has acceptable levels? That's my question. Why would we do that if we're at acceptable levels?
So I'm wondering if the best way to manage this at this moment, I think we can cover costs with CCD that we're experiencing now and that we think are coming. I think the best way, because we don't have that proposal yet from Sarah Hamidovich, I think what we could do is bring that information to you all once we have it.
We have it. She sent it to me on Monday.
Oh, well,
I haven't
I'm
had.
sorry. Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
you
of
haven't.
course, right?
Yes.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But once we have that we can bring that here and have a discussion and share the information with you so that you know what we're doing, what the plan is. I mean, there are some minor things that I know we need to repair. I mean, I know that things she had said verbally at our meeting, but but we can present that information so that you have a sense of what we're doing. But I think replacing the HVAC would not be a viable expense to take on if we're building a new justice building.
Yeah, and I guess the only thing that I'll say to that before we go on, because I know council members over here have a hand up, and again, I don't want to belabor this conversation, but again, what I also remember hearing is we got to figure out a contingency plan to get people out of that building, and while they are there in that building, we have to make sure that, with the continuation of, remediation and testing and whatnot, to ensure the health and safety of everybody in that building. So again, that's a conversation that I look forward to having. And again, more can come in October, but that's all I'll have to say about that. So I'll move on. Yes, Councilor Decker.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Occasionally, we all know that counselors get information while they're in the meeting, just as commissioners do, but someone had referenced to me plenum air versus ducted air and that difference. And I am not even close to qualified to spell half that, let alone talk about what that truly means. But what I would say is, and this might be a discussion that you all have with Mr. Cockrell or Ms. Kreider, however you work it out. But if as I look at the bond description, at least in the narrative portion, we talk about courthouse ground. If the CUMCAP makes you waiver in some way, having a background option there, maybe what you want to do before we get to adoption. But that's something that you'll have to figure out best based on that information.
So actually, Richard and I had spoken a little bit during all of this, and the 200,000 that we've kind of identified for the the historic courthouse, if we use the community foundation funding in addition to this, that could be reduced to 150. We could then put 50,000 as an earmark for the Justice Building, if you like. And again, yeah, we could do that.
And I'm sure I've got just a few more. I'm sure there's things to figure out on that end. The one thing I'll say is I think everyone is always very fond of and emotionally attached to the courthouse. I mean, my heavens, it's on every image of this community and the logo, and I love the courthouse. That said, sometimes the courthouse where we sit gets a lot of attention and other buildings may not, right? Just visual or eyeball attention. And so if that helps you all to kind of figure that out, maybe that is something to think about. One other thing, when I look at this list here, and it's a pretty solid list of things, I do want to make sure, does the word vehicles, again, I'm looking at narrative, maybe I should be looking at something else, but does that give you does that narrative give you enough wiggle room to do that street sweeper that we had kind of looked at and shifted out?
We're gonna, so there are things that we need to amend on our exhibits. And if you all, so they need to amend it too, right? No? Okay, because you have it in red on here to be amended.
Jeff has to amend the written component, and that will include highway and the TSD sheriff items. The street sweeper should have been, I think is already in there, but I'm not sure. He'll need to have a look at that and see. What was the question? What was the issue?
I just want to make sure when I see the word vehicles, I want to make sure that gives you wiggle enough room that street sweeper wouldn't get lost or street sweepers covered. Because I know that when we kind of shifted that out of there, it was with the wink and a hope that something like this is out there somewhere.
So, we're talking two things, because in my mind, yes, if you could put it under, it can be considered a vehicle, I don't care. However, when it comes to appropriating lines in the bond, it is much easier to have them specifically associated with a project. Because otherwise I've got highway with vehicles that are trying to purchase. I've got airport with vehicles they're trying to purchase. And it just makes it's much cleaner if we can address each need individually. And the auditor's been great at helping us come up with good plans.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I would consider the street sweeper a vehicle, but I did not have that in mind when I prepared that list. And so when something like that comes up, I run that by bond counsel and I get their guidance on those kind of things. I guess what I'm intending to do is take this discussion, because it sounds to me like there is some additions that need to be added to that list. I'm going to amend that list, again, run it by the bond counsel to make sure we're not doing anything crazy. And then when we publish the appropriation before your next meeting where it gets voted on, we'll make sure that language is appropriate.
The only other thing I'll say, and then I'll be quiet, is that so often in our roles, everyone says, you all just need to cut, never look back again. You all just sit up there and make things up. But when you look at this list, I don't know that I've yet to find something where I say, well, right there, that's them being malfeasant and a joke. I mean, I want to talk about some of these things for a second. Emergency management, sirens, and equipment. That one right there alone. Body cameras, which is now expected by everyone. Right, left, indifferent, smart, dumb, you name it. Emergency management building, right, which we every year test how much those folks will go through and then some. Youth Services Bureau, they were just in here. So voter election services, we're doing a massive transition there. And my gosh, don't get that wrong, because everybody's going to want to weigh in next year. So I just, the bond avenue, which is a means to keep government doing the things it's got to do, because again, no one else is going to do animal control and other things, so might as well be us. But the ability to do this is a powerhouse to get those things done. And a few counselors have heard me say this over the years, but you expect in our county roads and things to have a street sweeper, right? You expect paving, you expect services, and living rural doesn't necessarily mean you just signed up to, get out there with a broom and hit the gravel. It means you expect those amenities in a place like this. This is the only way we get it done. So I appreciate very much the list and the continuing work, particularly around what Councilor Crosley asked so well, and we'll figure it out.
I'm gonna look over to my right here, Councilor Henry.
Yeah, thank you. And I know we're really into this, but there's some newness. I mean, it's a new structure, right? So actually, my two questions are on the legal piece, Jeff. So I wanted to maybe just get some stuff in the air. So the first question really is understanding the 5-year and the cooling off and what we're doing here. So, I'm gonna just put this in layman's terms and maybe some ignorance of my own, right? So with this bond presented for 6 years, or sorry, 5 years, $6 million, are we gonna see another 5 years, $6 million next year and the following year and the following year, right? This is it for 5 years in terms of bond, the general obligation bond. Is that a way to think about it?
Well, I guess I think you said a few different things.
Yeah, I did.
Other counties have had this type of program where they do a $6 million 6-year bond each year of the 6-year cycle, right? And so that is an option. I think that you and the commissioners probably need to have a conversation about how that's going to look moving forward, because historically we've had $3 million per year. So is this, if you guys choose to do $6 million this year, does that mean we're going to do the $6 million each year for the next 6 years? Or does that mean we're going to do $6 million every other year, or however that's going to work out? That is kind of a conversation that the council and the commissioners have to have that discussion. Ultimately, it's the council's decision whether they issue the bond or not.
Okay. So the second piece of that then is in the new structure, is there a current threshold for controlled projects in the county? Like if we had, and how do we figure that out? Like, is there, why 6 million? Why not 16 million of stuff today? Like, what is there a cap on this under new legislation or not?
There are different levels, right?
Okay.
So, I don't know the exact number, although I can say 6 million's below the level where there's a level where you have to go, I think it's over 18 million or 19 million, where it got the full, you're going to go through a referendum and all that. And medium level where it's like, well, I think it's subject to a not a bond council. I just know that once you get and I think it's about 7 million is where that cutoff is. It used to be 3 million, or actually it used to be 2 million. Then it went to 5 million, but it has a kind of growth factor associated with it. So these numbers change every year. So they go up a little bit, but there's a kind of a threshold that starts, I think, around 7 and ends around 19, where there's just a different structure and process. And I don't exactly know what that structure and process is. But I'm in my mind, I think it's kind of like if you get so many remonstrations in, then that goes to through the DLGF or through some kind of process that has an ultimate decision maker that is not you, right?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you taking the shot at it. I know that was a technical question, but it does raise some interesting ideas about how much we can bond for and for what. I mean, when you say 18, we're awfully close to what's been asked for to begin the Justice Center project at that point in terms of, I'm sure, what you're coming back for later on that. So I just wanted to raise, what are our, I think that's a good question to ask as we're considering this year, next year, and following years as our revenue continues to decline in the county as well, what we're asking for. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I'm sorry.
And I just want to be clear that the structure that we've looked at with the Justice Center is a revenue bond, which is a different beast than a general obligation property tax bond.
And my understanding is we could bond 100% of the county's revenue if we wanted to, and it is the way the law works, as it's been described to me. But we shouldn't do that.
No, we cannot bond 100% of the county revenue, because if you're utilizing property tax, that's where these rules kick in. And if you're using lit, then there's a structure where you can only go up to 25% right now of what your revenue is. So, and then two, you can't make your budget if you bond all your revenue away.
Thanks for going in the weeds with me. I appreciate it. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Leslie, I just have a procedural question. Do you need to make any changes to the amendment or to the motion that I read today? Or I know you need to go to bond council for some additionals, but for tonight, it's okay the way that I read it?
I think it was introduced at this meeting. I think we've had a very thorough discussion that included changes. I actually think what you read is different than what was in the Exhibit A. I think, I'm trying to go back, but I think it's pretty clear from this meeting what the expectation is. This will be advertised for your next meeting, so the appropriation will be advertised, and so the detail will be in that advertisement, so the public will be aware and know exactly what you guys are going to be looking at the next meeting.
Great, thanks.
Okay, well, that was it. A good conversation. All right, are there any other questions from council related to this item? All right, seeing none. We will place this on the October 14th agenda for our next meeting. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I just want to clarify, I just pulled up Exhibit A from the ordinance with regards to the motion, and they match. I was going to say, I thought I took it straight from Exhibit A. So
Okay.
so whatever's in Exhibit A is what's
I
there.
appreciate that.
Okay.
But we'll make the changes as discussed.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. I actually, I need to excuse myself for the moment. But before I excuse myself, I wanted to see if we could recess for 5 minutes and be back for around 7:06 to finish out the agenda. Is that okay with council? Okay. All right. So we will come back at 7:06. Okay, and welcome back. We're still here, and we are going to dive into the county council business. And we're going to start with item 11B since A was tabled.
Council, I move to approve ordinance 2025-26, approval of the Recorder's Perpetuation Fund, request for office expenses for the 2026 budget year.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. I'm going to look to a person that's been really quiet this evening, which is Ms. Turner King. Hello.
Hello. So I hear an echo. Hold on. So the first resolution is 2526, which is the recorder's sworn affidavit. This is a yearly thing that happens. The recorder presented a sworn affidavit during her budget session that states that there's enough funding in there to cover office expenses, and so this is the resolution that would accept that sworn statement and authorize that budgetary expense.
Okay. Oh, okay. And we're back. And that's all she has to say about that. Said Forrest Gump. All right. Looking to my left here to see if anybody has any questions.
So
Yes.
I presume, well, this was in the packet, but I wonder if there's a way to put it up so people can see it now.
Yes.
Do we have a way to do that?
And it looks like Ms. Turner King is intently getting ready with us. Okay, and so this is up for the public to see if you are via Teams or present here in the Natty Hill room or to watch later. All right. Councilor Decker, did I see that you had your hand up?
Same thing as
Okay.
Councilor Fido.
Okay, all right, thank you. And looking over here to my right to see if anybody has any questions on this item. Yes, Councilor Hawk.
I think this is just routine. Before she's allowed to spend money out of there, she has to put a resolution saying that this is appropriate use of the money and so forth. So it's just something she has to do every year. She's going to use the money out of there. No problem.
That's correct.
And I try to find a problem if there's one there, but there's none there.
Oh, we know. All right. Anybody else have anything on this item? All right, seeing none. If there's any public comment on this item, you can come forward to the lectern here in the Night Youth Hill room, or you can raise your hand via Teams. And seeing none, this is a resolution. Can we do a voice vote on this? Nope.
It has to be a roll call.
Ah, darn. Okay, I tried. All right, may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Fido?
Yes.
Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right, next item.
Council, I move to open for discussion Resolution 2025-41, a resolution relating to the use of overtime.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second, and to kind of cue up the conversation here, because before we go to Ms. Turner King, this is something that came out of budget discussion and conversation as we saw many account lines through various departments have overtime, and as the public continues to hear us say that we are trying to work really hard and getting our deficit down, and this was something that the council as a whole talked about last week during our marathon meeting of other items that we could look at, and this is one of the discussions that came from that. So, Ms. Turner King, you can take it away.
And I went ahead and displayed this resolution. This is the draft that I shared last week. So I'm skipping the whereas clauses and going to the now therefore clauses. Upon passage of this resolution, it would remove departmental budget lines in all departments except for departments with 24-hour operations. So that would include the sheriff, the jail, YSB, and or that are responsible for responding to weather conditions and or natural disasters. That covers highway. And then those are actually listed out in the next sentence. And then the second paragraph of the resolution indicates for the exempted departments, the council encourages overtime to be used judicially, and then it implements the following procedure. So if a department were to need additional appropriations or funding beyond what is already in their budget and was going to do an in-house transfer, it would require them to come to council before that in-house transfer can happen, which is not the current procedure. So it kind of makes it creates more transparency on how much overtime is being used, and then there's when they come to council, a requirement that they provide a report, and the report lists out the number of overtime hours used by the department as of the date of the request, the dollar amount related to those hours, the reasons for the overtime, the amount of anticipated need that they're asking for, why that is an anticipated need, and then it also asks for the number of comp time hours accrued by the department's employees to kind of give you a comparison of comp time versus overtime. And I'm happy to make any amendments to this as council sees fit.
Thank you for that. And I see a hand raised over here to my left. Councilor Fido.
Thank you. I don't know that I have any amendments, but I have a question. I'm just curious maybe if there might have been another resolution before about overtime, and if it was similar to this one. Are we missing anything from one before that we might want to consider? That was just a thought.
I didn't find any prior overtime resolution. I did find like a prior hiring freeze resolution. I did look to see if I could find other local government agencies that did overtime resolutions. there wasn't any that I could find, and so this is just kind of a new document that I thought documented the council's expressed intent.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Henry.
Thank you. Ms. Turner King, I'm going to propose an amendment here, but I just wanted to maybe get some procedural steps in line here with the auditor's office as well. So under the now therefore item 1, I'd like to add to the exempt departments airport operations. Now, my understanding is airport operations doesn't have an overtime line right now in the budget, so we'd have to add it later this evening at a line item, I think. Is that so? So there's a two-step here. Does it matter for the resolution if we add airport operations now and then add the budget line item later, or do we need the line item first before I add it, in your view? I just want to make sure we're doing this right.
I think if council wants to make that amendment and then pass this resolution with the intent that that amendment be incorporated, you can pass the resolution contingent on the creation of the overtime line. So if you do this first, you can create the line after.
I mean, would it be sufficient to just add the sorry, I keep saying Air Force. I guess we have an Air Force in the county now. All right, airport operation to the line, but do I need to add that other verbiage contingent upon, or can I just say airport operations?
I think that when we do the roll call on the motion and the resolution, we would add the contingency.
Thank you. Madam President, I have a motion to amend the resolution.
Okay, go ahead.
So on item 1 in the now therefore clauses, to add the exempt departments would include the Air Force, I'm sorry, did it again, airport operations before Sheriff's Office.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second on the airport, not Air Force, to be added in there. I think they just had a birthday. That's why you're, thinking about it. All right. Any other questions on that? Yes, Councilor Vital.
So I was just curious why it was before the sheriff's office. Is there a reason for that?
Alphabetical, but it's not alphabetical.
I don't think the rest
anyway.
of them are alphabetical.
They're not. It just caught my attention.
Okay.
All right. Yes, Councilor Hawk.
Right. At what point would, this is for Ms. King, at what point is appropriate for us to add that line in the budget so that if it's necessary to use this, because it's not.
Tonight.
Kim?
I was going to say later tonight, we can make a motion to add it to the budget.
Let's forget it.
Okay. Are there any other further discussions on Councilor Henry's amendment? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment to add airport operations to this line signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. All right, amendment carries. Now, coming back to the overall, yes. Yeah, Councilor Iverson.
So my question is for staff. I know that a fiscal impact has not been calculated, and particularly makes it hard because we just added a whole nother department. But do we have any idea of the fiscal impact that this resolution, if passed, would have? And again, I mean, I'm asking you to ballpark it.
I have not done one since I wasn't sure where you guys were going with what you were intending to do, but I could have one prepared for the next meeting in October 14th.
Thank you.
So is there any other further discussion on this motion here or on the resolution? Alrighty. Seeing none. Yeah.
Just a point of procedure, I guess. I read my motion as a discussion only. And so I think given the fact that we just had that conversation about fiscal impact, then we'll read another motion at our next meeting.
Yes, we can just move forward with the changes as is, and then we can add it to the October 14th so that it will be on the corrected and in the packet for the public along with the fiscal impact. or you can make a motion and approve it tonight.
I personally want to see the fiscal impact before adopting, so I'm going to be quiet.
Okay, council, what say you? Yes,
Right,
Councilor Hawk.
I think whatever we can do to make sure that we're reducing our expenditures is important to do, and the sooner we do it, the better. And so I would like to see a vote on this tonight, and then we can make an amendment to it at the next meeting.
Okay, yes, Councilor Deckard.
I appreciate what Councilor Iverson said about fiscal impact. I generally, on everything we're talking about in the budget, I'm very curious about just impact. And we're figuring out things, trying to get this all right. I am more in favor of holding this, as Councilor Iverson, I think, said, to the next meeting in case there are any other unintended consequences, or to really see what we're talking about. Sometimes we can have really amped up conversations in here about $2.35. And sometimes we can have amped up conversations about very important things. And I'd like to have a better handle on what this truly means.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. We can make changes or during the public hearing. So that will be our next time to be able to make adjustments. So that is September 30th. So next Tuesday, I can bring this information back to you on September 30th.
Okay. So we have a couple of council members who want to think about impact, and then we just heard Ms. Shell say that this resolution could come back to us at our next meeting, which is September 30th for the public hearing. Is there any other questions or comments from council related to this discussion?
Well, I'd like to call a question on doing it this evening and see where we go. See if anybody wants to do that, and if not, then the majority wishes to wait.
Well,
So
I guess, would
I call
somebody
the
like to make a
question.
motion?
on whether or not we would move forward with it tonight, and then any corrections to it can be made at our next meeting.
Correct.
The motion?
That's a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Doesn't look like we have a second, so you folks. Oh, did you?
Oh, look at us.
Put my hearing aid in. Okay.
Hey, look at my goodness. Birds of a feather. Okay, so we got a motion and a second. Are there any other further discussion on this item? I guess I understand us wanting to know the fiscal impact of this, and I think that is something that we could potentially get, or we can get next week. So if we decided to pass this resolution tonight, we could still look to you to give us that impact. And if there is something that might impact what we hear, then we can always change that or make, and we can bring this back up during next week's meeting.
That is correct.
Okay. Ooh, Councilor Hawk, look at us. I think I would be in favor of your motion.
Can I ask a clarifying question on the motion?
Yes.
Is the motion to pass this tonight contingent on the creation of that overtime line that we talked about for the airport?
Yes.
I would be in agreement of that as well. Oh. A little bipartisan heart is so happy. Okay. Okay. Yes.
So I was just wondering if somebody could be a little more elaborate on the pros and cons of doing it one way or the other.
In terms of like
voting the motion Councilor Hawk made or not doing it, right?
I think the pro is if we hear something that happens, and I don't want to speak, I guess she could also speak to this, but I think for me, this would be if we say it all goes in our favor and we put this resolution into place, and Michelle comes back and she brings us, information related to fiscal impact. If everybody is all good with what she has brought to us, then there's no further discussion. That's one less item on a long night that we would have to hear. At least that's what I look at in terms of that. Yes.
I get it.
Okay. Yes, Councilor.
And the reasons you should vote no on this is because, number one, we don't know the fiscal impact. So if the fiscal impact is low, should we even be doing this? Does it have an impact? Number two, our staff, who we work really hard to make sure have jobs, just saw this resolution tonight. So department heads and people who are going to be impacted by this have only heard this conversation tonight. I think we owe it to them to give them 1 week to mull it over.
So would there be no way then to change it if we approve to accept it now?
Charge, we can get rid of totally next meeting if we'd like to.
Yeah. So even if we
That is
didn't
true.
vote, even if we didn't vote no, it seems like we could change it, right?
Yes, and that's
Counselor
what
Iverson?
Michelle
Okay.
was saying
Thank you.
as well too.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I saw Ms. Turner King have her hand up.
I think one detail that is not in this resolution that I'm now going to reshare that might factor into whether you adopt it now or not is when do you want this to become effective? Because so for example, for the hiring freeze, the discussion that is coming up next in the draft resolution has that resolution going into effect immediately. This does not have a timeline built into it. So is the idea that this is implemented for 2026 budgets? Is it implemented now?
Now, I think,
Yes, Councilor Hawk.
I think if we really want to try to stop the flow of money leaving, we need to make it effective now. If between now and the next meeting, we have department heads that say, this really isn't working because it was an emergency, we did X, Y, and Z, we can change it then. But the longer we delay trying to get our work done, the more is going to be on our plate, and we'll have another 6-hour meeting, well, 5-hour, whatever it was. So I'm just trying to get things to move. That doesn't hurt anyone.
Yes, Ms. Turner King.
If it is council's intent that this become effective immediately, I would suggest that a motion should be made to amend this to add some language.
And I would also like to, since we are currently in a payroll, we may already have people that have done overtime.
Mhm.
So I would recommend that the effective date be October 5th.
Okay, I saw some
That's
hands.
the beginning of that's the beginning of a new payroll.
Okay. And so, again, we are on the discussion of Councilor Hawk's amendment. So I saw Councilor Decker have his hand up. Yes.
So I mean, that kind of further illustrates a point. And again, I don't know that we know specifically who right now was thinking why while they're running a department. But if somebody said on September 24th and 25th, I will need you to do a little bit of overtime for the annual ringing of the sheaves or whatever it is that the department knows that we don't know, then that could suddenly be not the plan in those next 2 days. Am I wrong on this? Right? So it's like, so I do get the sense to like, hurry, 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 do all these things, hurry. But again, we're talking about a thing that goes from 1 week to the next meeting to the cycle. So I get I don't know, we can do what we want here, but again, sometimes there's midstream unintended consequences that come out for something, and hopefully we've exempted everything. I don't know, we found another one tonight that we had to add in here that was necessary.
Yes, Councilor Iverson.
So I want to make a motion to add the effective date. However, Councilmember Hawk, would it be all right with you if I made this motion before we voted on your motion? Please do, yeah.
That the effective date would be
October 5th.
October 8th.
5th.
5. 5th.
The 5th.
Said October 8th, it should be October 5th.
October 5th.
Second.
This is crazy.
Okay. So we made the motion to amend. So if we are wanting to do this effective immediately because we are in the middle of payroll, that it would have an effective date of October 5th,
Right.
2025.
October 5th.
Okay. All right. Any other further discussion? All right. Seeing none. If there's any public comment that folks would like to make, you are here in the Nat U Hill room. If you'd like to make a public comment, you could come forward to the lectern here in the Nat U Hill room, or you can raise your hand via Teams. And seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
This is on the amendment
Yes,
to add
for
the effective date.
The effective date,
Okay.
correct. Yes.
Right, so, yeah, so this will be the second amendment.
Yes. So technically, because this is an amendment to add, we can do a voice vote. Okay, that's right. All right, all those in favor of the amendment to add October 5th to this signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Now for the overall resolution here, can we have a roll call vote?
Counselor Iverson?
No.
Counselor Deckard?
No.
Counselor Fidel?
Yes.
Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-2.
Okay. And the only thing for us having that vote tonight is if we hear anything else between now and next week, we can always bring this conversation back up. Michelle still can continue to look at the fiscal impact for that, and depending on what that could be, you know, other conversations could be had next week. So, next item.
Council, I move to open for discussion. Resolution 2025-41, a resolution to temporarily freeze the hiring of full and part-time staff.
All right, we got a motion and a second, and I'm gonna go back to Ms. Turner King for this one.
And this is Resolution 2025-42.
Yes, I meant to, that was a Scribner's error, excuse me. This is 2025-42.
I apologize.
So I'm getting ready to share my screen. This is the hiring freeze resolution that council was considering but did not pass at the last meeting. And so what I have done is, in essence, looked at the last time a motion to this effect went into place, and it will go from there with amendments. So I think I know a lot of departments have provided feedback based on the last council meeting, and some of the feedback was situational. So how does this hiring freeze apply to grant positions? How does this hiring freeze apply to departments that are already in the process of hiring process? So they've interviewed applicants. Some have already had applicants make commitments, but they won't start until later in October. So I think there's a lot of questions as to how council sees this hiring freeze applying to those situations.
Question?
And so the last time that we had a hiring freeze, was back during COVID, is that correct?
Yes.
And I guess my question to, how did we do it before? Because this was before my time.
So the prior resolution doesn't have any language in it that is applicable to grant positions, and so I wasn't here either, but I'm assuming since there isn't anything in the resolution that exempts those positions, the resolution was applicable to those positions.
And that is something that we should definitely consider. All right, I think I heard somebody say question over here. Councilor Hawk, did you have a question?
Yes, when it comes to grants, sometimes a grant is split between, some money in the grant, some money in general, whatever. And so I can see why we would want to make sure it just covered all of it, because otherwise you'd have somebody hired to pay a part of the salary. And then we're going to end up with the same mess we got now, where all the grant money goes away and then we get stuck with everything in county general. And that's not something we can continue to afford.
Councilor Iverson.
I want to address the third clause of this draft resolution, which handles public safety. It is clear that, there it is, in the fourth line that council will identify what positions fit within this category. And I think we need to think well, first of all, my question is, have we gotten feedback from, okay, hold on, let me back up. I think we need to think pretty broadly about this. And the reason is I think when we think public safety, we think immediately of sheriff and jail. I think that's pretty rational. But we're about to hit winter, and this sunsets on December 31st. And if we get a big snowstorm, who's going to be clearing the streets and the roads? To me, that's a public safety issue. When someone goes for a hearing, we got our public defender in the back of the room here. Is that an issue of public safety that people have representation in the courts? And so I think we need to think pretty long and hard about what exactly clause number 3 means. And I think that there's additional nuance within the departments, right? Not everyone in the department has that, public safety feature. But not every position, excuse me. And so I think that needs to be teased out. And so my question to you, Ms. Molly Turner King, is when we've done this before, did we elucidate those positions? Did we enumerate those positions?
I used the exact language from the prior resolution, so they weren't identified or enumerated in the resolution itself. And I did not go back to the 2020 recordings to see if, when the resolution was adopted, the conversation itself identified them.
Okay. I mean, I think that's, before we even start to really even seriously consider this resolution, I think we have to get that list down pat. We need to talk to every single one of those department heads.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Hawk.
I did send you an email about this, Molly. Pardon me, Ms. King, because I wanted to make sure that this was, it sort of reflected part of what the overtime situation was as well, to making sure that a 24-hour required staff, such as in the jail, such as in the youth shelter, that that they would always have, they have to have a certain amount of staff to have the door open. Can't very well close that jail, and you can't very well close our youth shelter. So those things need to make sure we're protected that. And the only reason this would even come up is because we have a serious budget situation that we have to address. Now, you could pick it together for a long time, and we could decide 3 or 4 months from now, we should have done it 3 or 4 months ago, or we can do it sooner rather than later, so that we can do what we need to do. But I'm not going to argue the point. I just know what I think we should do.
Okay. Yes, Counselor Vital.
So I have a couple of questions about the whereas language in the second one, where it says, whereas due to state and federal, it seems like there's something missing there.
I added legislation.
That takes care of that one. What about in the fourth whereas, where in the third line, it says positions are naturally vacated and then would be to adopt? Is there something missing in front of would be to adopt? You see where I'm talking about? Okay. It seems like there's a word or two missing there. So if you read it, it says can be attained through attrition as positions are naturally vacated. Then it goes on, would be to adopt. What do you mean would be to adopt? What would be to adopt?
I think it's just a poorly worded sentence, and I can rewrite that one, but that is exactly how it was read in the first one. And so,
well, I'm sorry, I wasn't
no, it's
here
okay.
then.
No, me either. So I think it just needs reworded.
Okay. So what is the intent there I mean, you don't have to give me the exact verbiage. What is the intent that would say?
I think it should say the council recognizes that one method that can be implemented to maintain personal cost at current levels or reduced levels would be to adopt a temporary hiring freeze to the The problem is that to the extent reductions can be attained through attrition as positions are naturally vacated is modifying the reduced levels. And so I just need to make that more clear.
Okay, so you'll work on that. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody? Yes, Counselor Decker.
So I want to make sure I understand it correctly. Let's say that this is passed, it's in effect, a department says, I have a position that I believe is either a public safety or necessary position under this. That department would then come to us just like anything else that we would have here. And then we all would have a giant public discussion about that to move forward or not move forward. Is that right?
Procedurally, yes.
And it would have to hit one of those two, public safety or necessary. And we'd all talk about that very publicly in that sort of way. Okay. All right. Well, if I can speak on it just for a second, the one thing I'm not a fan of these times by any stretch. I'm not a fan of these times at all. It's these, as I said a second ago, sometimes these things have unintended consequences. And in 2020, we had some strange circumstances occur that were never the goal. But again, you've got to do what you got to do. The one thing that I like about this all is that, which I'm sure department head may not necessarily always like, but that we will be in a discussion together talking about the position. And that's probably pretty annoying for the hiring, but I sometimes think that as council understands these things, we get these things and these things go from abstract into this is necessary. And so that's a portion that gives me relief. I will say this for counselors, we've got to be able to move like you know what through a goose. We cannot not, because I mean you're talking about public safety and necessary positions, and a body that has to have 48 hours notice for things isn't really built for a hot rod speed. So that will be a thing that we do with those department heads. But if it's something that gets us to the other side, we just got to know that it's going to be that. And the last time we did it, there was a lot of detail walking and a lot of kind of figuring that out, and we have to be nimble because we don't have a counter and they do. And that's, we cannot ever forget that. This all right here is not a counter. This is a meeting, a voting body of elected officials who are here some of the time and not always. This can put us here a lot, and that may be part of it, or it may not, who knows? Maybe it all gets better real quick, but I just throw that out there.
Yes, Counselor Henry.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate the comments of my peers here. And we, of course, we're wrestling with hard times. I think what's important to relay, I think we have over the past month here, as we've been wrestling with a budget with finite resources, at least from my seat, it's to preserve and take care of the staff we have. And so to the extent we have our people, we are trying to protect our folks and find a way to give them even COLA and tough financial times that this is part of it. I mean, as much as we would like to have additional resource helping our departments, the resource is finite. We are losing revenue with each cycle. This is the easy year. The next 2 years get increasingly difficult, and so it is weighing on all of us to look at this. My question is just a clarifying one in terms of the hiring process, right? Because there have been, I think, Ms. Turner-King, you mentioned some department heads had raised the concern about where they are in their pipeline. So, I mean, as I'm counting it, I think we have 9 vacant positions on the county website right now. Some I presume are very close to offer. Some may or still be in interviews. Like, did some of this come up in that meeting in terms of the current pipeline of where, who was in the department head meeting? Were you there? You were not. So I'm kind of curious if anyone was in the meeting with department heads that could speak to the questions that were coming out about the pipeline process. Like, there's some offers out there on the street, I take it.
I've only know of one.
Okay.
And that was in the surveyor's office of someone. He is currently interviewing someone for a position. I was not there for that department head meeting because that was the next morning after our marathon meeting. And so I didn't make it because that meeting was at 9 o'clock. But I do know that it was discussed and that we've had several phone calls with regards to a hiring freeze, but he's the only one that has said, I'm in the process of hiring.
And I'll just finish my thought here to say, again, we do get into a space, if we're the ones up here at the counter, if you will, adjudicating what is necessary is a word that's in the document, what's necessary versus not. Of course, we do that through PAC anyway when we have a more deliberate process, but looking at the list right now, we have a truck driver, which we've talked about snow removal at some point, right? We have an airport operations specialist, which is FAA, put out fires, shovel snow at the airport. We have the 4th disposition for health that we've been fighting for back and forth all year. You mentioned the surveyor. We have some fleet maintenance part-timers. We have both prosecuting attorney's office and a public defender. And of course, now we're into the criminal justice conversation, and 3 youth service bureau personnel. And so just that survey of what's currently being marketed runs into some challenges in the resolution. I guess what I would offer is if it's marketed, it's in the pipeline right now. And then there's sort of the faucet that turns off behind. I think Councilor Wiltz had mentioned something to that effect, not to put words in her mouth, regarding the ability that we always have had to put holds on positions that come out from departments anyway. Thinking about at what point we turn off the faucet has my attention this evening, I think.
That's a good point. And I think Ms. Turner-King had her hand up.
I was just going to add that I also know of one department that has actually extended an offer. The offer has been accepted. The applicant has given 2 weeks notice and is scheduled to start on October 22nd.
Okay, got it. Councilor Decker said something during his comment, and I had it and I lost it. And I'm trying to figure out how to bring it back. Okay. So I guess my question to council members that were here when we did have this implemented before was, and anybody for that matter, the staff as well, when we did have this hiring freeze, what was the process for council to go through and to have the public, I guess, conversations with department heads to make the case for to implement the new person or to, yeah.
I was just going to say, if you wanted me to, I can easily go back within the week and find the 2020 recordings and watch it and provide a summary of those conversations to council.
I want to say what happened was if a department had a vacancy, they submitted a request stating what the vacancy was, within the narrative and why they needed it. And then council would bring them in at the next opportunity you know, the closest meeting that they could. So.
Yes, Counselor Hawk.
Just wanted to mention that I noticed, because I know you folks don't care what the state's doing, but I noticed one of the things that they were doing was saying if the position, I didn't have memorized it, I just was reviewing it. Something about if the position was vacant, or they came forward, they still had to leave it vacant for 30 days before they filled it. They had to have permission to fill it, but thereby relieving that budget so that 30 days worth of salary was not used, because they were trying to get enough money to get through the year or having some reversions. I mean, you would want to go back and take a look at that, but I thought, well, that is one way to really try to get some reversions, is to say if it's already been vacant for a while and you hadn't bothered to fill it, now all of a sudden you want to fill it, and you come and say, yes, you want to fill it, you still have to leave it for another 30 days. I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting part to put in there. We might want to look at, would that help? I'm not saying I'm for it or against it.
Yes, Counselor.
Yeah, I want to pick up on that, because there are positions that we've had vacant in the county for several months. And I think if you're going to take a measure of what's necessary or not, you can make an argument that says if you haven't even marketed it, if it's been vacant for a while, those might be line items to start looking at. We would just need, I think, a clock on some of those to figure out, you know, in the 2026 budget, if it's been, if there's a line item for it and there's an appropriation, but we know it's been sitting open for 6 months or more, that might be something to look at. So it's similar to what I think you're describing, but to go a little farther and say, is this necessary? If it's been sitting vacant, what is the rationale for keeping it open? And there may be some positions in there we can scrape. But I know we're off the rails on the resolution itself, but yeah.
I mean, but it's still all a part of it. Yes, Counselor, I'll go Decker and then Final.
One thing we could do, so if we have folks that are in progress, one thing we could do is add to the resolution that we recognize there's a ramping up of this, meaning that if there, obviously much like the overtime discussion, faucet on, faucet off, can be more complicated during a service period. So I'm wondering, since we ticked off a few people, and I wouldn't want to do this, us doing this, but if we said that between now and the next week, department heads could identify things in progress that could then be tracked towards that onset of whatever the disposition of that is, and then after that, this occupies that process. So it literally gives sort of an on-ramp to anyone who registers within the week. Public defender says, hey, I've got this interview. Prosecutor says this. Coming up, they give us an idea of those. We have those. We've got that sort of docketed. Here's number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I hate to put extra work on them, but this could fix this. Then post that list after the week is closed. Then we're under this system. And that gives everybody a chance to say, I don't want to take a ride on that cruise, or I do want to ride on that cruise, or I'll just wait until this all settles and sees. Does that make sense? So if I were wizarding this on here, I would put that in whereases, right? So I would put it in, and I would make it the last whereas. Yeah.
Your intent is to ask departments to provide some type of list that of hiring processes that are already started. I think you can identify what you mean by started. Does that mean I posted the job? Does that mean I've interviewed? Where are we at? And then what I think might be easier is to say that, to attach the list as an exhibit and say, as identified by the departments, these are the ongoing hiring process in place prior to the passage of this resolution, and this resolution would allow the hiring of those positions.
Yeah, I would say if there's a human involved in a discussion that's not someone on the county side or a human prospect in that now, that would be enough, and we give that grace for this 1 week additional period. And then from beyond that, go to the traditional system. An interested applicant, hot prospect, interview in progress, negotiation underway. I think beyond that, it's fishing and it's not there. And then it just falls under this, which is somebody comes in and says, I gotta have this, you all should agree, and we say yay. Does that make sense, Molly?
Councilor Fido.
So, speaking of Molly, she gave a really good example of a timeline of a situation, a current situation. And so I don't know what we would need to write to accommodate that, to make it fair to the person accepting the job. In my mind, we certainly don't want somebody to say, I'm leaving another job and thought I had one here, and then they don't, right?
I think that would be a situation that would go in that exhibit list that Trent or Councilor Deckert was just referring to say that this process has already been started and actually finished. We're just waiting for a start date so that that position could be hired as an exception to this resolution.
I just don't want the timing to get messed up anyhow and giving people options that they thought they had, and then they make not really poor decisions, but they're stuck with the consequences, right?
At this, although I understand that there's some urgency to take action, I think that the best course would be for me to incorporate all of these ideas in a draft, send it out to you, and then you can review it at the next week's meeting. And that also gives departments time to tell us what they have in progress, or if they have additional feedback, because right now this is just a discussion item. I don't know if you're opening it to public comment, but I imagine there is public comment.
I'm sure of that.
Yeah, okay. So it's clear that it's definitely a thought that is on our minds right now. And it is clear that a lot of us still have some things that we want to work out with this. And since this is just a discussion, rather than Councilor Iverson making a motion, this is something that I think we need to think about a little bit more, get more data, hear from our department heads as well, and come back to the drawing board next week on the 30th. Yes, Councilor Fido.
So just one more thing, I see at the bottom, it talks about in number 6, will automatically expire December 31st. And I guess I don't know where that date came from.
It's a placeholder right now. That is a discussion point that I was going to bring up. In essence, I drafted it just like our PAC pause, which was it would expire at the end of this year unless revisited or extended by council. I think it makes sense, and the intent is to limit budgetary expenses for next year, that it would extend into December 31st of 2026.
Yeah, because I think we're at a different point now making this resolution than we were when we did the PAC pause, right? In my opinion. Yeah.
And this resolution, actually, number 6 says at the bottom, I know it's not something that we're gonna, at least for me, I'm not ready right now. Number 6, it says this resolution will automatically expire December 31st, 2025. So that's just maybe something to think of, to change as well too, since we just had the conversation of having it set to expire during the last day of the budget of 26, which is December 31st. Okay. Okay. So that was so if there are any department heads that are listening and watching or are here, please send your information to us as council. We do care about what is happening with the State House, because they're the reasons why we're having all these conversations and trying to figure out and stress to the max and all the ulcers that all of us feel as we are going through this budget season. So I dare to say that we actually do.
If I could, I'd like to have departments forward everything to the council office. That way you guys don't get a bunch of different emails, and then that way I'll consolidate them and work with Molly, and then we can get them all out.
And I know this is going to be asking a lot of department heads, but I think the best approach, because I don't think they're all watching, is for either Kim or myself to send an email out to department heads. And I would like to see what council feels about as putting a deadline for like end of day Wednesday. And I say end of day Wednesday because potentially I'm going to take all of this information and try to get a draft for a packet that's going to come out on Friday.
Yeah, because we'll have to have the agenda and the packet out Friday for next Tuesday.
Okay.
I mean, I can work on, we could say Thursday
I was gonna
by
say,
noon.
could we say, since today is Tuesday?
Yep.
That gives people a lot of chance to ponder and think about that. So I like that idea, and I wonder if everybody is okay with this, of allowing department heads to weigh in by noon on this Thursday, so that we can get the information out and put in packets, so that we can all receive it, ponder on it until our next meeting on the 30th. Does that sound good for everybody? Yes, Councilor Iverson.
And maybe giving leeway for staff that if the incoming data is quite a bit, and we're working on 2026 budget, and we're working on everything else, that if there is not turnaround time to include it for the next advertised budget, that maybe grace can be given for a future agenda as well. I'm very conscious of the amount of work that we're putting on our staff at this point.
Of course, of course.
To piggyback on Council Member Iverson's comment, I think I can send an email, and I will also ask department heads just to send comments directly to me, because Kim and Lehua are knee-deep in budgets, and this is one thing, and Sophia Travis, so this is one thing I can just handle myself.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for stepping up to volunteering for the Tribune. All right. Okay, so be prepared for conversations for next week as we go through this. All right. Next up on our agenda here is item E.
Council, I move to open for discussion and to clarify that the council precedent set for assigning an employee as an outlier in the salary ordinance is based on the employee's hourly rate and not the classification.
Second.
All right, and this is where I look to Ms. Turner King again, because this is your part where you come in. It's your show. We all live in it.
So, this is the situation that occurred back in February. It's a little bit further back than February. In like November, the council or the public defender's office, the council office and the public defender worked to create a job description for system navigators. Prior to then, a system navigator job description didn't exist, so we created one, we sent it to WIS, it came back, it was classified as a Comment D, and previously it was a Civ Pol D. D or E? D. D. Council approved the amended job description in February, and what was supposed to happen at that meeting was that the system navigators would be grandfathered in or classified as outliers at their current rate. And then when that rate matched the rate of the Comment D classification, then they would, in essence, absorb the rate and continue on with the Comment D classification. The signature page for what occurred at the February 11th meeting documents the process that I just said, and the agenda states that process. Unfortunately, the motion was different, and so thus led to confusion. So currently, what we need to clarify is that, was it the council's intent to grandfather them and then at the rate, which is in line with what council has done in this situation in the past, or was the intent to grandfather them in at the classification, which would mean that the rates would never align, and thus they would remain at the Civ Pol D rate until the people who are currently in that position vacated it and new positions would be hired in at the common D rate, which is not what council usually does, I've been told.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Councilor Fido.
So I don't know that I remember everything, but I think that I feel strongly that there should be an element of past practice here. What we have done in the past would make me very happy to do again.
All right, does anybody else have any questions or comments related to this item? Yes, Councilor Iverson.
Councilmember Fidel said it the best. I agree.
Okay. Anybody else for that matter? Seeing none, and for the record, Councilor Hawk has left the building. Okay, so if there is public comment on this particular item, here is your time to shine. You can come forward to the lectern here in the Night U Hill Room, or you can raise your hand via Teams. And seeing none, may we please have, oh, yes,
Well,
before we do.
This is just open for discussion, so there's not a motion on the table to make a salary amendment.
Okay, just kidding.
Do we need to approve our
So we need
clarification?
to make a motion.
Do we need to like approve council's intent?
I think the motion would incorporate the intent.
Got it. Yeah, I think it did too.
So do you want to make a motion tonight to amend the salary ordinance, or would you like us to add it to the next meeting?
No.
No, you don't.
No.
To add the clarity you just decided?
We're gonna let him finish his bite. and then Iverson clarify.
It is my understanding that the clarity that council just identified matches what I read in what I just said. That
But the motion was to open for discussion, so I think you have to move to amend the salary ordinance so that the salary ordinance aligns with your discussion.
Okay. I'm going to do my best on this motion. You ready? Council, I move to open the salary ordinance and to clarify that the outlier in the salary ordinance is based on the employee's hourly rate.
Second.
All right.
Got a
Oh
motion.
man, there's not a lot of confidence over there.
Wait, we got a motion and a second?
I have a,
Yes.
so is this the past practice, what we did before? I just want to clarify.
I don't know, look to Ms. Turner
I think
for that.
we need to.
If I may help with the motion,
I am in need of it.
I think
Write this.
perhaps the language should be that you are moving to amend the salary ordinance so that the system navigators are identified as outliers by their hourly rate and not by their classification. At this point, you could say so moved.
So
Consent.
a little too helpful there.
Nice prompting. Love the prompting.
Okay, so just so we all are clear, is that sufficient for the intent
And the past practice.
Correct.
and the best practice?
Past practice?
Okay. So now that we did that, now I can go back to my oopsie daisy moment and saying, if there's any public comment related to this item, please come forward to the lectern here in the Night U Hill Room or raise your hand via Teams.
Pardon me, who seconded that?
I consented
Consent.
All right.
to that change.
Seeing none, I ask or consent that we go to a roll call vote.
Counselor Fidel?
Yes.
Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley.
Yes.
Counselor Iverson.
Yes.
Counselor Deckard. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up is item F.
Council, I move to open for discussion and possible adoption, Resolution 2025-27, establishing the 2026 minimum cash balances.
Second.
All right, Ms. Turner King, it says you are up on this conversation.
Well, I could start this conversation, but I don't think this is a me conversation. I think there is some interest in potentially amending the minimum cash balance resolutions that was passed, and I don't have it readily available to display it, so I don't know if, Kim, you could find that resolution. Before the conversation starts off, I think the one caveat and concern that I will voice is that if we're going to in any way amend those minimum balance levels, I do think that it's worthy of having a conversation with FSG. And so I have a scheduled meeting time with FSG tomorrow. And so if there are any questions that council has or concerns that they immediately would want answered before amending this resolution, I am happy to address that with FSG tomorrow.
Okay. Okay, and I see the auditor's head was in agreement as well of making sure that we have that conversation with FSG. So since it was brought for a discussion, and this is information for us to give back to the powers that be to have the conversation with FSG. Would anybody like to make their conversations? I'm gonna go to Councilor Decker, and then I'm gonna rotate over here to my right with Councilor Iverson.
Thank you very much for entertaining this, and I appreciate very much some analysis from FSG. And I'll just be candid. I've talked on the mic numerous times about this, that I have a concern that some of the pressure we're hitting in our budget is our desire that we enacted in this resolution to hit all these minimum cash balances, so that when we're budgeting, we're looking at priorities of departments, we're looking at revenues coming in, but we're also thinking about minimum cash balances. So much that it's starting to perhaps eat into things that we have. We went from a minimum, and I'll take just the general fund for line 1,000. We went in the general fund from a cash balance last year of 10 million up to 15 million. I am concerned that that additional 5 million is starting to creep into the pressure that we're feeling, and that we are literally getting into, while this is a time to have austerity and to trim it and to own it and to think hard about every single line. And I'm not saying we have not done that in the past, but we are literally looking in every space, in every department. While it is a time to do that, we also have to think about the priorities that we set and what we sacrifice. And while I do believe it is desirable that the county maintain strong minimum cash balances over existing rainy day funds as part of good practice, I'm a little bit concerned that that effort to please both rainy day fund, which you need to have, and we have had, and we've built up over the years, and minimum cash balance starts to set a tierage of systems by which the service for which the taxpayers have paid starts to come in equally with those things. And I'll put it another way, if I could. Years ago, there was a good state rep up from the northern part of the state named Jeff Espick. He was Ways and Means Chair. I think he's still around. He would always say this when Frank O'Bannon was governor and there was some surplus in the state. He'd say, government is not a bank. Now, I don't believe that that statement is 110% of the time, but we have to be very careful that in our effort to hit these high standards of money we want to kind of have on hand, that we're not forcing ourselves to cut services or cut things without being smart about it. And so tonight, I mean, we're talking about overtime cuts. We're talking about hiring freezes. We're talking about moving money into bonds. We're talking about what goes in that bond. We have to think about all those things, and that is our job. We signed up for it. But I just worry that 15 million could be a price too high. And so I would love to hear FSG comment on 12 million as a minimum. And I would say that would be, to me, a starting point that we think of that as a minimum, but we may in future years find that our ability to continue to say those sort of high standards we have versus what's happening in our tax base, that we may not be able to kind of keep those numbers the way they are. I don't want to affect our bond rating. I'm looking for that answer from them. I don't want to put us into trouble, but I know that when I looked, I believe it was yesterday, I was in here for a good portion of the day, it looked like we had a 22 million cash balance. We had 7 million of that, of which was not designated dollars. And so I have to think about, if I go sit right now in the middle of Beltsville or somewhere in this county, can I make an argument to a taxpayer, I'm cutting services and I need to add another 5 million to that minimum cash fund? And I hope I'm wrong on that, but not to belabor the point, I think we have to sacrifice a little bit too in that. And that doesn't mean not being fiscally prudent, it just means pruning some of our expectations. So I'll stop talking.
Thank you very much. Councilor Iverson.
Thank you, Madam President. The way I'm looking at this is that we, as I think Councilmember Henry said it earlier, need to have every tool in our toolbox at our disposal. I'm very glad that we're talking with FSG tomorrow. I'm very glad that we're discussing this. And I think this is certainly one of the things that we can look at, as this year I do think is going to be one of the easier years. I think the next 2 years are going to be even harder. So I remain curious, and I think that's a good place to be here. And I want to reiterate that I am deeply in favor of the work of the Long-Term Finance Committee. I think that's a very wise thing that we did to create that committee. These minimum cash balances, minimum fund balances came out of that committee as a best practice, and you can go out and look at local government finance and look at the different best practices. This is one of them. I don't think anybody here is looking to get rid of these cash balances, and I think that as we are having these conversations, this is something that Councilmember Deckard raised as well, that if we zero base budgeted this from 2024, or I think that's the last year that we had it, that, would that impact the bond rating? Would that impact our ability to have ability to bond? And I think these are all really interesting questions that we need to talk with FSG about. I think the other thing that I wanted to point out is, as you're looking at this long list on the screen of minimum fund balances, I am not in favor of reducing, all of them by a certain percentage. What I am in favor of is, I think something that Councilor Deckard alluded to was looking at the general fund and the general fund alone, because that's been the emphasis that we are looking at our 2026 budget at, is trying to keep that general fund healthy. So I'll leave it at those comments.
Thank you very much. Councilor Henry.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. I have two questions and then a comment. So first question is, the FSG's recent assessment about leaving the minimum fund balance as recommended, has that letter been made public in a public space? We received a document from them. Is that something that's public record that could be found at this point?
As far as I know, it hasn't been shared publicly. I think it would be good to do so.
So between now and the next time we talk about this, that makes sense. Secondly, I have a question about the numbers, and then I'll get to my comments. So, Brianne and Carly, in order to really understand this question, we need to understand what happened between settlements, because what the fund balance is doing is protecting our ability to pay our bills each month, right? And as we sawtooth down to the moment where we're running low on funds before settlement is when things get worrisome. So can you share if you have the balances between the last settlements of December and June of 25 of this year and what that looks like? Because I think we do need some numbers in order to really understand what's being asked here.
Okay.
Do you have it? Or, I mean, that fast? Okay.
Yes, I have information in front of me. So we ended the year general fund balance at $30,181,939. So in the span between settlements, so 12/18/24 through 6/19/25, the total receipts were $17,241,973. And then just the salary portion of expenses from the general fund were $22,456,600.
So pretty close. All right.
So just one other figure, the day before settlement, the general fund cash balance was $17,404,000.
So real close. And so one can imagine if we had healthcare reimbursements hit at that moment, like we just dealt with last week, 5.6 million, give or take, that would have been a challenge for us because we would have had a difference in the minimum fund balance. Okay.
Right.
I think that's one of the points we need to evaluate with FSG right there. So I want to just maybe say my piece about this as we get in front of FSG and what this really means. I've heard this opinion making about reducing the minimum fund balance for the past 2 weeks. I just don't agree. I just don't agree with it. But aside from the fact that we just voted in June to raise our caps at the advice of FSG based on their expertise as financial advisors, right? So I think the first idea that I want to talk about is this idea of government as a bank, which I think Councilor Deckard's raised a few times. I think it's probably best to think of the minimum fund balance as a shield or our insurance policy against those shocks, kind of like that, which we just heard about. It's not just the health insurance payments, it's the fact that state and federal funding is wonky at best right now in terms of how we get things from the state and federal government. It's, that's part of the discussion here. It's our shield or our insurance policy that we can show that we can pay our bills. So I'm not comfortable, undoing that. I don't think the answer to a leaky budget is to lower the basement floor. I think it's to go find the holes in our budget and go make the cuts where they need to be. We get 2 settlements a year. We've been hit with millions in unanticipated insurance bills over the past 2 months. And I really do think the days that we went through an ARPA discussion this evening about being kind of flush with ARPA money as well as COVID money are over. I think it's also fair to say that as income tax changes in the state, our ability to receive the $4 or $2 million surprise income that we tend to get sometimes year after year, usually in the summer, those disbursements are probably coming to an end as well. And so there's a lot to think about here. I would like to maintain the cushion that's been recommended by FSG because of the 2 things that are on my mind. First is it's good accounting practice. When we get audited under generally accepted accounting principles, I hope John Meixel is looking down on me right now, I was talking about GAAP, but GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association, they recommend about 16 to 18% of the minimum fund balance. Now we are at 23% in one of those funds with the general fund. So you could say that seems high-ish. But we have to balance it, I believe, on what FSG was telling us, which is, we just sat through a presentation about bonds, right? 6 million over 5 years, and as Mr. Cockrell said, could be 6 million every year for 5 years. Like that's an increase in our bonding there. We also know that the commissioners would like to bond somewhere between 10 and 17 million every year for the next 20 years to build a criminal justice facility. That's a lot more bonding, which means you have to show the market that you're good for money with the AA bond rating that we have in the county. So more money, more borrowing capacity, a little more in reserve to show we can pay our bills, especially when we saw tooth down to those deductions or those deductions when we get very close to our settlement. So those things are on my mind as we're looking at this. They clearly need the expertise of FSG to weigh in on this, so we're aiming right. But I'm going to stick with my vote in June at this point, where we raised it, especially given how much is being asked of us to fund while revenues continue to decrease, as Councilor Iverson, I think, quoted me, I'm quoting him back now, this is the easy year, right? It gets harder. We're not at final boss level, if you will. So with that, Madam President, those are some of my thoughts on this resolution this evening. Thank you.
Duly noted. Okay, thank you. Anybody else would like to weigh in on this conversation? I will. And then we'll, proceed forward. Again, I think the biggest thing that we continue to keep talking about is how are we going to lower this deficit that is in our budget right now. And while on one side of the dais, if you will, maybe is, the thought of looking at the minimum cash balance, and on one side of the coin here, I should say, is, maybe not looking at that. I think I would like, as I've said before with this, is I want to be able to look at, after this budget season has come and gone, that we have left no stones unturned, that we've looked at every possible thing. I know that there are some people, because in our conversations in 2026 budget hearings, have been, maybe we use edit for certain things, and some people have been like, well, no, don't do that. And then we hear people going, don't touch my minimum balance right now. And then we have, the argument of, hey, let's look at what this looks like. So I think for me, I want to be able to weigh in on every single thing and look at every little speck of lint when it comes to what we need to do for this particular budget season. So I am curious to know what FSG definitely says, because I don't want to hurt our bonding capacity, and I don't want us to be in a really sticky type situation where we've kind of put ourselves in a FAFO status with balances, if you will. So that's on my mind, and that is my concern. And I don't fault any council member up here for trying to figure out what we can do, because again, hashtag thanks Indiana for putting us in this predicament to begin with. So I look forward to the conversation that will be had tomorrow, and then you will report back to us, because I would assume, again, this is something that will come up on September 30th.
Yes, and if council members have specific questions, I would, if you could forward them to me before tomorrow, which I know is asking a lot, so that when the FSG meeting happens, I can ask those questions. And I will also send Councilmember Hawk and Wilt an email asking if they have any questions, so that they aren't left out of the opportunity to hear FSG's thoughts.
What time, so that we all know exactly when we should get
They
you?
haven't confirmed a time.
Okay.
I only proposed afternoon times. So by noon.
Okay. Okay. So by noon tomorrow, everybody that has pressing issues or things that we might think about later after we've had a good night's sleep and some coffee tomorrow morning, we'll think about things and we'll pass that information along. And also, one more hand raised, Councilor Decker.
Yeah, one thing I want to say, I appreciate very much you looking at this. I would like to know very specifically what FSG says about this is what you have to do. Your most ideal thing is never to spend money, because sometimes I've been in some of those meetings and the implication is just don't ever spend money and you'll be okay. We have got to have very specific information. If I'm literally saying, or we are saying, in lieu of spend those dollars or don't. I mean, this is really a line item. It's a $5 million line item that sits in the budget alongside everything else, including all the items that we have debated, other items that have been cut and may have been cut. And we need to know very specifically if that would go from 15 to 14, 15 to 13, 15 to 12 in general fund, what that would mean. And I'll put this in email to you, but not that it's the most ideal as a preference to have the most as possible. That is consultant talk, and we need actual talk. And we cannot be the only county that's contemplating this or having this issue.
I'll go back to Councilor Henry, and then if we all have any other further discussions after this, I'd like for us to move on for other items here.
Yeah, as a consultant American, I'm not offended by that statement. But Ms. Gregory, what happens? Maybe the question for the auditor: when we lowering the minimum fund balance, what does that do to the deficit?
Nothing.
Nothing. I think I was just cautioned about comparing this against other line items. It's kind of the equivalent of saying that, I have an auto pay set up on a bank account and I know the money's sitting there and it's supposed to pay my auto payments. And then sometimes I touch it because maybe I can get a deposit in there in time to cover my bills. It's just a different line item. It's not a line item relative to others. It's just, I think, and it's not really a philosophical statement. At some point we are going to get into GAAP and generally accepted accounting practices. So I do look forward to what FSG has to say on that. Thank you, Madam
It's just wait
President.
for them.
Yeah.
So there's a great rapper that once said the marathon continues. So that being said, this is a conversation that will continue to come about, and we will stay tuned like a telenovela next Tuesday, September 30th. All right. Thank you very much. And now we are moving back to item G, which is also a marathon, which is the 2026 budget reviews.
All right, here we go. This is item G1, and for those of you counting at home, we're going to go to G11. So there's 11 motions coming. Buckle up. Council, I move to open budget 1107-0000 Aviation Fund and make the following amendments. Reduce line. I'll wait for the screen here. Reduce line 13590 Airport Operations Specialist to $50,711. Reduce account line 17601 Longevity to $5,300. Reduce account line 18101 FICA to $50,577. And finally, reduce account line 18201 PERF to $88,868.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Are there any questions from council? Michelle, would you like to speak on this?
Yes, if you'll recall during aviation's budget session, they mentioned that a long-term employee had resigned and that this line needed to be set back down to the minimum for 2026. So those are the numbers reflective of what is needed for 2026.
Okay. All right. Okay. Maybe have a roll call vote.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Fidel? Yes. Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, next up, G2.
Council, I move to open budget 1000-0271 General Fund Public Defender and make the following amendments. Reduce account line 13038 System Navigator to $38,077. Reduce account line 13039 System Navigator to $37,728. Reduce account line 18101 FICA to $138,452. And reduce account line 18201 PERF to $249,612.
Second.
Did I misread something? Okay.
Okay. We got a motion and a second? Yes, Mr. McCain.
This item is to, in essence, reflect the change that you just made in the 2026 budget.
Got it.
In an artfully stated motion, might I add.
All right. Any other further questions from council on this item? I hope not, because we had a whole conversation before. Okay. And seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Fidel?
Yes.
Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, next up, item G3.
Council, I move to open budget 1000-0626 General Fund Animal Control and make the following amendment. Increase account line 35040 Animal Shelter Interlocal to $480,808.
Okay.
And again, this is animal control in the general fund. Okay.
Yes, I reached out to the sheriff's department and I spoke with Jamie, the financial manager for the sheriff's office, and asked her if they had received anything with regards to the animal local shelter interlocal. And she reached back out to them and it had passed. So this number that I'm asking to increase this to is reflective of what has been passed by the city. So this is our portion for the 2026 year.
All right, any other further discussion from council on this item? Yes, Councilor Fido.
Can you highlight the difference there, what it was and what it's going to?
It's right there on the screen.
Well, I can't see it from here.
You can't, okay, it's 433, 123 to 480, 808.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Fido?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, next up is G4.
Council, I move to open budget 1173-0000 Motor Vehicle Highway Restricted and make the following amendments. Create the following account lines. Truck driver 15830, set the amount to $13,505. Truck driver 15831, set the amount to $13,505. Truck driver 15832, set the amount to $13,505. Truck driver 15833, set the amount to $13,505. Truck driver 15835, set the amount to $14,045. Truck driver 15836, set the amount to $12,829. Truck driver 15837, set the amount to $13,505. Truck driver 15838, set the amount to $12,829. Truck driver 15839, set the amount to $13,505. Truck driver 15840, set the amount to $12,829. Truck driver 15841, set the amount to $13,505. Truck driver 15842, set the amount to $12,829. Truck driver 15844, set the amount to $12,829. Truck driver 15845, set the amount to $12,829. Light equipment operator, right? LT is light. All right, thank you. 15847, set the amount to $14,248. Light equipment operator 15848, set the amount to $14,248. Equipment operator 15849, set the amount to $14,649. Equipment operator 15850, set the amount to $16,053. Equipment operator 15852, set the amount to $14,082. Equipment operator 15853, set the amount to $16,053. Equipment operator 15854, set the amount to $14,082. Equipment operator 15855, set the amount to $14,082. Equipment operator 15856, set the amount to $14,649. Signman 15857, set the amount to $14,248. Signman 15858, set the amount to $13,697. Traffic Control Tech 15861, set the amount to $11,872. Traffic Control Tech 15862, set the amount to $11,872. Full-time self-insurance 18001, set the amount to $100,847. FICA 18101, set the amount to $32,461. PERF 18201, set the amount to $56368. Furthermore, reduce account line 23400 by Tuminous to $93,000. Reduce account line 30006 contractual to $951,121. And reduce account line 30129 sidewalk repair and maintenance to $150,000.
Second.
No, I didn't.
I was just kidding.
That is a terrible thing to say to someone.
Bingo. All right.
Can you repeat those?
Michelle, what would you like to add to this?
Lisa Ridge is here if you'd like to speak with her, but what happened was, this is a way to reduce the amount in 1176 and just kind of give some relief to that fund in 1176. So this is just a portion of the truck drivers that can be put in here. We did speak with employee services. This is can be done through AOD, where a portion can be paid out of two different funds. So do you wish to say anything? Okay.
So the public isn't hearing you, Lisa. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Hello.
Hello. So we're just taking 25% of the crews and putting them into 1173. In the past, we used to do transfers all year. It gets a little bit messy doing that. Last year, we tried to do this. It still left our 1176 way over budget. I don't like to be over budget, so moving 25% over to the restricted activities will help balance those two budgets and keep them within our estimated revenue.
Thank you very much for that. All right, anybody have any questions on this long motion here that Councilor Iverson made?
No, it was a long and it was a lot of numbers, so we're confident the numbers are correct, right? No doubt about that, right?
Yes, the highway department sent me these numbers. I typed them in to this script, sent it back to them. They double checked it, so everything is correct.
Love it, thank you.
And I just want to remind everyone the next one's even longer. So thanks.
You were built for this. Okay. All right. Without any other further discussion, you like using your TV voice. May we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Feidel?
Yes.
Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right. Next up on the 2026 bingo card is item G5.
Make me laugh. Council, I move to open budget 1176-0000 motor vehicle highway and make the following amendments. Reduce these account lines. Can I just say the name and not the account?
Whatever you want to do.
Whatever I want to do?
Yeah.
All right. Reduce superintendent to 83,257, director at 79,818, operations manager at 44,699, highway engineer at 82,760, truck driver, oh, here we go, 15830 to 4514, truck driver 15831 to 40,514, truck driver 15832 to 40,514, truck driver 15833 to 40,514, truck driver 15835 to 42,136, truck driver 15836 to 38,486, truck driver 15837 to 40,514, truck driver 15838 to 38,486, truck driver 15839 to 40,514, truck driver 15840 to 38,486, truck driver 15841 to 40,514, truck driver 15842 to 38,486, truck driver 15844 to 38,486, truck driver 15845 to 38,486, light equipment operator 15847 to 42,744, light equipment operator 15848 to 42,744, equipment operator 15849 to 43,946, equipment operator 15850 to 48,158, equipment operator 15852 to 42,245, equipment operator 15853 to 48,158, equipment operator 15854 to 42,245, equipment operator 15855 to 42,245, equipment operator 15856 to 43,946, signman 15857 to 42,744, signman 15858 to 41,091, traffic control tech 15861 to 35,615, traffic control tech 15862 to 35,615, self-insurance to 575,653, FICA to 185,293, PERF to 182, 01 to 321,758 and increase account line 30006 contractual to $143,552.
Second.
All right. Anything else to add to this, Michelle?
This is the 75% from the lines that is in 1173.
Got it. Okay. Any questions from council on this item? Seeing none. All right. May we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Fido?
Yes.
Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Next up is G6.
Council, I move to open budget 1197-0000 stormwater management and make the following amendments. Create the following account lines: superintendent at $27,753, director at $34,208, operations manager at $19,157, highway engineer at $14,605. And increase account line 18001 self-insurance to 18625, increase account line FICA to 68,505, and increase account line PERF to 123,417.
Okay. Is there anything else to add to this?
These are the administrative positions that can't be put into 1173. So, pardon? Going into 1197. Right. So they put a portion of these positions into the stormwater. So to kind of, relieve that Fund 1176 again.
All right. And is there any other questions or comments from council related to this item? Seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Fido?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Next up is G7.
Council, I move to open budget 1000-0002 county general auditor and make the following amendments. Increase account line 10020 general ledger and grants manager to $69,493. Reduce account line 10044 internal auditor to $60,653. Increase account line 18101 FICA to $70,782. Increase account line 18201 PERF to $129,113.
Second.
Okay. Anything to add to this item?
So it was discovered that the general ledger person, when it was first budgeted, should have been budgeted at the 8-year. It was not, because there's been a personnel change. There's also been a personnel change with regards to the internal auditor, and so that has been lowered to the 1 year because it is now at the minimum. So with those two amendments, that brings her budget to the current personnel.
Okay. All right. And just looking at the auditor, did you have anything to add to that? Nope. Okay. Good. You got it good. Okay. All right. Council, does anybody have any questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Fido?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Next up is item G8.
Council, I move to open budget 1000-005 county general sheriff and make the following amendments. Reduce account line 30025 maintenance to $1,000.
Second.
Okay. Anything to add to this?
Yes, Molly and I Ms. Turner King, had a meeting with Chief Deputy Parker yesterday, along with a couple of his people. We were talking overtime, and during that conversation, this account line was mentioned. This particular account line is not utilized that much. This one is the one, so they don't mind to reduce it down to the $1,000. It's the maintenance line that's within the jail that they don't want touched. And you guys did not do anything with that. So they are happy with reducing this down to $1,000.
Okay, so thank you for that clarification, because last week, when we were going through our motions, it was determined then that the proposed motion was to zero out a line item, so this is not it.
No, this is
Okay.
not it.
And to confirm, that particular item, they just want to leave alone.
Yes, and I will show it to you here in just a moment.
Okay.
It's this line right here, which is set at $50,000.
Okay.
It's a maintenance / repair supplies, and it was set at $50,000 last year, and so that's what they're doing for this year as well.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Council, do you have any questions or comments on this line item? I appreciate the reduction of that line item. All right. And seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Fidel?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, next up is G9.
Council, I move to open budget 1202-0000, Surveyor's Corner Perpetuation, and make the following amendments. Reduce account line 18001 self-insurance to 0. Reduce account line 18101 FICA to 0. Reduce account line 18201 PERF to 0.
Second.
Okay. Michelle, would you like to add anything to this item?
The surveyor has recently attended a conference, and per updated SBOA and regulations and this kind of thing, it was discovered that benefits along with FICA and PERF cannot be taken out of the corner perpetuation fund. So these items need to be reduced, and then they're going to be moved to the general fund, which are the next two motions.
All right, Council, do you have any further discussion or questions on this item? Yes, Councilor Henry.
I would just say I did have a chance to sit down with the surveyor on Friday on this issue, and it's one of the good catches, so I appreciate that, caught, reported, shared. I mean, it does bump things back up a little, but good accounting on his part. So just thanking the surveyor for the catch.
Yes, thank you. All right, without any other further discussion, may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Fidel?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, next up is item G10.
Council, I move to open budget 1000-0006, County General Surveyor, and make the following amendments. Increase account line 18101 FICA to 24,142. Increase account line 18201 PERF to 39,446.
Okay. Michelle, what would you like to add to this item?
This is just the FICA portion that's going to pay for the personnel that's in the surveyor's corner. So we increased those two amounts to accommodate for that.
Okay. Council, do you have any other questions or comments on this item? Okay. And like Councilor Hawk is online too. Okay. All right. Seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Okay. Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Fidel?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
I see Ms. Turner King has her hand up.
As a reminder, if you're appearing virtually, you have to be visibly present. So Counselor Hawk would have to turn her camera on to vote.
It's on. Yeah, it's on. I see her.
Sorry, I didn't. Yeah. Not visible on the screen in,
Oh, yeah.
in that.
Okay. There's a painting behind her that I see. Okay. All right. Next up on the train is item G11.
Council, I move to open budget 1000-0309 County General Employee Services and make the following amendment. Increase account line 18001 self-insurance to $7,185,750.
Second.
All right. Michelle?
This is adding that portion of the coroner's perpetuation personnel, which is 0.75 personnel into that fund, in general fund.
Okay. Council, is there any other discussion on this item? And that's Councilor Hawk's hand raised. So can we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Fidel?
Yes.
Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 6-0.
Okay, thank you, and that concludes the amendments. But we got one more item before we end our time here with each other is council liaison updates and comments. And so I'm sure we got some. Let's keep it brief. But I am gonna look to Councilor Hawk to see if she has anything since she's on virtually, and then I'm gonna kind of go down the dais, starting with Councilor Fidel after Councilor Hawk.
No comments.
Oh, okay. That was easy. All right, Councilor Fidel.
I think I'd just be remiss in saying that we're inundated with the Sophia Travis Grant Committee work, and I'm completed 34 of the 45 applications I saw come through, have 11 more to go, and we'll be having a meeting on Friday. That's been the big work, budget hearings, just lots of budgets and committee meetings and liaison assignments. I've been trying to be there where I can, and I saw the lots and lots of things. I hope to go to the ribbon cutting this week. So for Fullerton Pike, that's a big deal. I got late to the sunrise ribbon cutting. I was about 20 minutes late, and they were all gone, but it was great. I drove on it. So I've been enjoying seeing what's happening in the county as related of county government and other things happening.
All right, thank you very much. Councilor Deckard.
I just, other than budgets and budgets and more budgets, also Sophia Travis Grant work, which thanks to Councilor Fidel for reminding me I got to get Johnny on the spot on my stuff because it's a long week, but it doesn't wait for anything. I do just want to say there was a beautiful, since I can't remember the last time we met, but there's a wonderful Monroe County Fall Festival. Thanks to all the community over there that did it, and then looking forward to this weekend, Story Days. So nice to have good things to go to.
Down the line, Council Iverson.
First of my 40 items.
We will adjourn.
No, I'm only going to share one thing. The Substance Use Disorder Advisory Commission finally met last Wednesday, and we got a lot of things accomplished. The two things that stand out that I want to make the public aware of is that we are making headway on the 2026 Recovery Summit. So that's really exciting. Keep your eyes peeled out for theme, date, that sort of thing. The second thing is, three things I need to talk about. The second thing is that the Substance Use Disorder Advisory Commission is going to be publishing the first ever comprehensive Monroe County treatment report in June of 2026. This is going to be written by members from Centerstone, the Probation Department, the Indiana Recovery Alliance, and a whole bunch of others. We're really excited about this because a lot of treatment has been siloed. And so this is going to be a really great report that we can look at. And the last thing I'll mention is this Friday, since this is Recovery Month, is Paint the Town Purple. So come on out to the south side of the lawn and celebrate recovery. I'm going to be dressed in purple. There's going to be a DJ. There's going to be lots of games, and it's always a packed house. But stick around, because this weekend is also Lotus Festival. So come for Paint the Town Purple. Stay for the Lotus stage, which will be on the north side of the courthouse. So it's going to be a great weekend here in downtown Monroe County.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a few notes. Yeah, I forgot about Lotus Festival. Yeah, Lotus Festival is interesting for me because it's always the anniversary of when my wife and I decided to move back from Washington here in Bloomerang to Bloomington. So it's like something about this time of year in the music that always makes me get a warm fuzzy about coming back to my forever home. It is also National Preparedness Month. There's months. We have a lot of months with titles. National Preparedness Month has been recognized since September 11th, 2001, where FEMA encourages folks to get prepared and think about their preparedness. It's not a bad time to check your fire alarm or your fire alarms at home and just make sure you're in good shape. I want to thank the Perry Township trustee and his staff, Dan Combs, who have written with the assistance of a local journalist, I think it was Stephen Higgs, on a kind of a report on their experience during the tornado in the spring. And it's in hard copy, but it's being distributed around the county to different organizations. But is a fascinating oral history of what happened and what we really need to do to continue to prepare for things. And I hope that there's a digital copy out there at some point to share with folks. But it's, I think, a great companion to the work that our emergency management agency is doing to really compile what the lessons learned we have from just how close things could have been worse in our community, but they were worse for so many people that are on the end of our lifelines for transitional housing. Some of those stories are still enduring in terms of people trying to get back on their feet and some of the challenges there. It's 6 months on, but Dan and his team did a really great job with that report. It's worth a look at and getting up into digital spaces. I think lastly, I would just reflect on also just how wonderful it was to see Beacon break ground on their new facility today with Councilor Feidel and Councilor Iverson that were there, and Commissioner Thomas. And with all, I think there was a comment made about positivity earlier about events in our community. That was a good positive event. It is so easy to, I think, look down our nose at people that are less fortunate in our community, and to make noise online and be full of judgment without solutions. And to be at a place where so many people were working on solutions today. And the energy that has gone into making that facility a reality was heartwarming before this event today, and I think really kind of steeled me a little bit for dealing with some incredible cynicism in our community about the state of affairs with persons experiencing homelessness and making it a political issue when it really is a human issue. And so thanks again for Beacon and the hard work and all the people that have put in hard work to get that place shovels in the ground and getting us on our way to solving some serious problems in our community. But thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, and I appreciate that, and thanks to all the hard work that's there. It's easy to make comment on things that you're seeing, but it's also even better when you kind of come off instead of being keyboard justice warriors and actually work with the folks at Beacon and other people that are trying to have solvable solutions instead of putting people out in their deepest, darkest moments. That's what I'll say to that. The other thing that I wanted to say is I've been a lot into our community with a lot of different things, and yesterday it brought me great pride to go talk to some students at Indiana University, while we still can, and have a really good civic conversation related to all the different things that are happening, and to get people open and engaged. And so as a result of that, there were a couple of students that were online via Teams, and one in particular that showed up in person. And it's interesting because in the conversation, they are very much eager and excited and want to be involved. They just don't know how. And I hope that any student that will watch this back, or the student Kennedy that was here earlier today, I just thank y'all so much for really actually taking to task what I had said yesterday in our conversation, and continuing to actually show up in community. And I would be remiss to say, I wish when I was a student and I graduated from this institution 20 plus years ago, that I would have got involved so much more in our community. But I was so busy and so focused on trying to graduate and not go back home to the great city of Gary, Indiana. So Bloomington and Monroe County, y'all got me for a while. So I appreciate that. And then the Neil Marshall Black Cultural Center had a pinning ceremony. And that was really interesting to see the first year students be involved. And so it was nice to actually, again, be involved and engaged in the community that we serve. And I just say thank you to Dr. Gloria Howell for inviting me to be a part of that. The last thing that I will say is, speaking of positivity and a lot of work and solutions that will be done, I look to all 7 of us, one that isn't here and the one that is virtual, Councilor Hogg, to say thank you for the continued work. It is not easy. Again, as I mentioned before, this is the 4th budget, I believe, that I've gone through, and this by far is one of the hardest ones to date, and it sounds like we got some more harder days that will come ahead. But for the work that we have done so far, I just want to say to my colleagues, thank you. I also wanted to say thank you so much to the auditor's office, Ms. Turner King, and our council staff for working tirelessly, definitely tirelessly, to, show up, smile when you don't really want to, and continue to keep coming to work and listening to all the things that we request of y'all. I know it's a lot, and this too shall pass, and I look forward to getting on the other side of this budget. So we still got some work to do, but the marathon continues. And with that being said, as I am so kindly reminded of, thanks, #Iverson, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.